Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to a long weekend from the opening drive here on 101 ESPN in St. Louis, where it is 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler.
You didn't roll it. You didn't roll the Rolex.
Did you want me to?
Yeah, do it.
Our friends at Clarkson Jewelers are an officially licensed Rolex jeweler.
Go. Much better.
That's Danny Mac. Matthew Rocchio is here. Brooke is in Nashville for the weekend visiting her parents. She'll be back on Tuesday, and it's great to have you with us here. Daniel, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad that I had Mizzou covering last night. I was just guessing. I was just, and I didn't have any real money on it. I just said, I think Mizzou's going to cover because we're going to talk to Howard Richards, and Howard said, yeah, they got to score 50 in this game. So he thought 50-3. Mizzou wins 51-0. Dan, we were talking before we came on the air about how good the folks in Vegas are. Missouri was a 50.5-point favorite. They kick a field goal at the end and win by 51-0.
How about, we were just talking about this before we came on the air, too. So that's amazing, but the Lindenwood one is even more amazing to me.
Yeah.
How would you know that Lindenwood would be able to cover and not cover, but be right there in the cusp of the line, basically until the very end? I mean, you knew it was trending in that direction, and you know that the second-teamers are coming in for KU, the second-teamers are coming in for Mizzou. You know you're going to see some third-team guys, and yet they get the line right. It is amazing. Every single weekend this happens.
Yeah, the Lindenwood Lions fall at KU 48-3. The closing line on that one, I believe, was 49.5, and Kansas winds up winning by 45. So us Lindenwood fans got a little something from that one.
Did you watch much of the game?
I watched the whole game. I was watching both of them, yeah.
Did you see Greg on the TV?
I did not.
I did not either.
No.
I wasn't sure if you saw him.
They were showing a lot of KU fans. I don't know if they showed any Lindenwood fans. I would assume he was right behind the Lindenwood bench.
I did like seeing it at the stadium.
Yeah.
I thought the stadium was intimate. I thought it was kind of cool. They played in a soccer stadium for people that didn't know that, but it was cool seeing that.
Yeah, Kansas is having their stadium completely rebuilt. They're building it basically from the ground up again, which good for them. But I hope they build it with about the same number of seats that they have at Children's Mercy Park in Overland Park.
So that was about 22,000, I think, 23,000, something like that. Yeah.
Intimate. That's what they need. The Illini, by the way, hammered Eastern Illinois 45-0. So go Illini. And so you got a 51-0, you got a 48-3, you've got a 45-0. All pale in comparison to Arkansas. They took care of Arkansas Pine Bluff 70-0.
They scored in their first 10 possessions.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
What do you learn, honestly, what do you learn out of these games? And are they just blood donors because it helps fund the schools, obviously? But, I mean, is that the only reason you're playing these games?
Yeah, it's essentially a scrimmage, right? It's your first team against somebody else's second or third team. And it does. I believe from last night's game at Kansas, I believe that funds the entire Lindenwood athletic department for the year.
So it's worth it for them.
Yeah.
I just, they had a couple of issues. The tight end for Mizzou, and there was another injury that popped up, and it looks like it's not serious, but I sit there and look and say, really worth it to play these games? Now, they did have a botched gimmick play.
Yeah, which kind of changed momentum.
It did. They had a couple holding penalties. Clock management was an issue at one point, so there are some things to work on, but they led 28-0, and then the offense kind of fell asleep. They were kind of lulled asleep. I think everybody was. Brady Cook missed on some deep throws, so that's something they need to improve upon. Luther Burden III touches the ball, and he's off to the races. He's so much fun to watch, and officially got the answer of whether or not he would return kicks, which that happened. Got to get the ball in his hands, and when it does happen that way, they're going to win a lot of games.
And each of the two running backs scored a touchdown, and both look pretty good.
Absolutely.
Noel and Carroll both look pretty good.
I thought they ran hard.
Yeah, and the offensive line, and I know that there were some issues with holding up front. That's another thing that you want to clean up, but they're going to be pretty darn good offensively. They're going to score a lot of points.
So the point is that we made 6-3-6 as second and third string Mizzou players got reps. That wouldn't happen against A&M. And you're right.
Yeah.
So you're getting some experience in that way in live action. I was watching, this is how sick I am, Randy. I was watching the spring football game yesterday in Missouri.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What'd you find?
I found that there wasn't a lot of contact. So to the point of second and third teamers getting some action and some live action, you got it.
Kind of like the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I can't comment on anything other than that. You're right.
So the college football season is underway here in the state of Missouri and the state of Illinois. Cardinals with a 4-1 win yesterday against the Padres. After the first two games, I'm surprised that they were able to forge a split with San Diego. Now the Cardinals go to Yankee Stadium, and this is another big series. They are actually capable, Dan, of finishing this stretch here against all playoff teams. They could finish pretty close to 500 in this stretch.
And I thought it would be around 500. I thought they'd be probably a game or two under, just because of the way that the season is gone. I thought Sonny Gray was really good yesterday. And
really good.
They needed him in the second half in the worst way, and it just didn't happen more times than not. Two hits, including a solo home run for Mason Wynn. Herrera and Scott each had 2 hits. Here's the thing, though, that is the story of the season, and to an extent it was a story of yesterday, but it didn't come back to bite them. 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position, 11 left on base. That's the story of the Cardinals season, man.
The whole season, right?
It really is. And just having that timely hit and having slug with runners in scoring position. So you can get a couple runners on and you're not seeing that double. You get a couple runners on, you're not seeing that home run, leaving a lot of guys left on base. The story of this season. So the Cardinals go into Yankee Stadium tonight, 10.5 back in the Central, 6 out in the wild card, and under 30 games to go. So it's going to be tough for them to do that.
They're 9-9 in this stretch so far, with 3 against the Yankees, 3 against the Brewers remaining. And then after that, 24 games left, and the schedule softens up substantially. After the Brewers series, you've got Seattle here, you've got Cincinnati here, you're at Toronto, you've got Pittsburgh here for 4, you've got Cleveland, that'll be your toughest series remaining. Cleveland here for 3, and then you go to Colorado and go to San Francisco to wrap up. I don't think the Cardinals are capable of going 20-4 in those 24 games, but that was what I was hoping they could set up for in September. And Dan, they'll be playing with a chance, not a realistic chance, but a mathematical chance to make the playoffs in September, which is, for this particular team, that's pretty good, because it's not a very good team.
No, it's not. And we were talking in the office about this. You know, when did you see it going south? And I thought it was the 3-game sweep at Cincinnati. Now, you can point to the White Sox series, wasn't good. You can point to what happened with Miami earlier in the season, not a good team. But those are just 2 series. When you were swept after the trade deadline and you get Fetty and you get Pham and you get some excitement, Pham has the big moment too. You thought maybe that would jumpstart them a little bit. It just never clicked, never happened. But they do have 13 of 16 at home in that stretch of lesser games coming up. So mathematically alive, and that's what you hold your hat on.
There's tragic news out of the hockey world this morning. Johnny Gaudreau, forward for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and his brother Matthew passing away in a car accident. The Blue Jackets releasing this statement that reads, "The Columbus Blue Jackets are shocked and devastated by this unimaginable tragedy. Johnny was not only a great hockey player, but more significantly a loving husband, father, son, brother, and friend. We extend our heartfelt sympathies to his wife Meredith, his children, Noah and Johnny, his parents, their family and friends on the sudden loss of Johnny and Matthew. Johnny played the game with a great joy, which was felt by everyone that saw him on the ice. He brought a genuine love for hockey with him everywhere he played, from Boston College to the Calgary Flames to Team USA to the Blue Jackets. He thrilled fans in a way that only Johnny Hockey could. The impact he had on our organization and our sport was profound, but pales in comparison to the incredible impression that he made on everyone who knew him. Johnny embraced our community when he arrived." I got to scroll down here. "Johnny embraced our community when he arrived 2 years ago, and Columbus welcomed him with open arms. We will miss him terribly and do everything that we can to support his family and each other through this tragedy. At this time, we ask for prayers for the Gaudreau family and that their privacy be respected as they grieve." Johnny Gaudreau, only 31.
Man, terrible, tragic, awful, and a loss for the National Hockey League and one of their good young players and a guy that's been established in the league for a while. So very, very sad news out of the NHL, no doubt.
And another tragedy for the Blue Jackets, who lost their goalie a couple of years ago. Remember that 4th of July fireworks accident? So they've just... poor John Davidson, he comes back there, and he's still a member of their organization, but he's had to deal with so much. He was here in St. Louis, I believe. I know he was friends with Bob Gassoff when Bob Gassoff passed away in that tragic motorcycle accident here. So it's as the Blue Jackets said, an unimaginable tragedy.
Terrible for the National Hockey League too, and just it's awful. It's awful when you hear about young people in any walk of life having to go through something like this. Obviously, the spotlight shines on professional athletes as well as it should, and they're heroes for a lot of young kids and things of that nature. So very sad for the National Hockey League today.
Yeah, and the goalie just 3 years ago, Matis Kivlenix, passed away in a 4th of July fireworks accident in which a mortar shell was fired from a fireworks device that hit him in the chest, and he passed away from that. So it's really been a tragic few years for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's Dan. I'm Randy, and this is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Craig Amsinger brought up an interesting comment yesterday here on the show, and
among other things.
Yeah,
he always does.
Yeah, you took issue with it, and I do too. And we're going to talk about this. Do you feel like we as fans pay players' salaries? That's next on 101 ESPN.
when I talk to my friends who are quote-unquote loyal Cardinal fans, they're kind of angry. They're like, this isn't a product I want to support. You know, I'm a paying customer. I pay for these guys' salaries, which is the most. When a fan says that to me, it drives me absolutely crazy. Like, no, you wouldn't really feel what it feels like to pay Paul Goldschmidt's salary. We can do this as a demo on live TV over the course of a year. We'll garnish your wages, and you will pay. We are the best fans in baseball. We are. But right now, it's a bad performance. It looks like Cardinal fans are in an 0 for 12 slump right now. They can dig themselves out of it. There's still a month left. But right now, Cardinal fans, you're not hitting above 200. And that is a very sad thing to say.
That's our buddy Greg Amsinger of MLB Network yesterday here on the opening drive on 101 ESPN. And that was a comment that drew the ire of one Danny Mac.
Well, first of all, let me say this. I love it when he comes on.
Yeah.
Comes on with opinions, and he's fun. He's entertaining. I just don't like it when he says that fans don't pay the salaries of players. I think in every sport, a fan pays, ultimately, the fan is paying the salary of a player because you go to the game. If you're not going to the game, you're watching the game, you're listening to the game, and if you don't have a fan, you don't have the game.
Well, to boil it down very simply, if there are no fans, how does sports make money?
That's it. And so you got to have the fans. You got to have the interest. You got to have them spending money on merchandise. That's how it works. And so, you know, look at it here locally with the TV deal and how much that means to the Cardinals and to Major League Baseball. And if you don't have fans watching, that's a real problem. And so fans are watching to go to the ballpark because they're interested in what's happening on the field. Ultimately, the game is about the players, right? But it also is ultimately about the fans supporting the product that you put on the field or generally the sport.
And if I could simplify it for Greg, and we didn't have time to get into it because we went really long with Greg yesterday, but it's not unlike a GoFundMe where a bunch of people raise a bunch of money. It's not one person paying for Paul Goldschmidt's salary. It's all of us that buy tickets. And whether it's a message to Cardinal ownership or whether it's just a reaction to a team that is going to probably have a losing record for the first time back-to-back since 1958-59 in a full season, whatever it is, it's alarming for the Cardinals. And even though the Cardinals, yesterday I think they said 27,000 sold, a lot of those tickets are going to brokers before the season even starts. The Cardinals have deals with brokers, and they get tickets before the season even starts, and they're betting on the Cardinals being good and them they're being able to make money more than they spent. But if you do a pie chart of Cardinals revenues, the largest chunk of revenue comes from ticket sales. And then number 2 is the local TV deal. Number 3 is the national TV deal. And then number 4, you've got MLB properties, you've got merchandising, you've got ancillary things around the ballpark like concessions and things like that. I think the Cardinals might even get for food a flat fee for concessions, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that the local fans, the ones that buy tickets and the ones that watch on Bally, are providing the preponderance of the revenue that the Cardinals are generating.
And it may not be even by going to the game, Randy, which you talked about. Butts in the seats is so important to what they have on that pie chart. But it's the support that you give, the ancillary things that go around the sport. I mean, if you didn't have fans, Greg wouldn't have a job.
Yeah,
and
right.
Probably we wouldn't either. So fans, need to be the focal point of what you do in sports, in my mind. And the fans ultimately do pay the salaries because of their interest of buying tickets, buying the merchandise, watching the games, listening to the games. If you don't have fans, you don't have sports. It's really that simple. So that's where I would kick back on that.
We get a text, this one from the 618. Factually, fans' money does pay the player's salary. But what does that mean? Do we have the right to not go and support a team? Yes. Do we have the right to demand players' time like the Little League coach did with Aaron Judge? Absolutely not. Agree with you 100%. When Judge was working, and different players have different approaches to the game. If Aaron Judge was focused on what the pitcher was doing and didn't want to turn around and wave to the little leaguers, that's fine. But yes, and I do think that as a group, when you talk about buying tickets and having the right to not buy tickets and not support the team, I believe that as a group, Cardinal fans, many of them are sending a message by not showing up to the games.
How else could you take it right now with fans not showing up? And I did not see what the crowd looked like yesterday. I mean, I saw a couple of shots, and it looked like it was really empty. That has to be alarming for the organization as a whole. I mean, any part of the organization, whether you're in sales, marketing, obviously ownership, that's alarming what's going on down there at Busch Stadium. It just, if you see that is a fan's way of saying we're upset, and apparently they're pretty upset right now by just looking at what happened with the way that these fans are coming out on this homestand. Now, I mentioned earlier, Randy, you brought up a great point. I thought it was an interesting point question. So I said 13 of 16 coming up at home in September. Would you rather have the Cardinals just get demolished on this road trip and kind of put you out of your misery? And let's talk about it from a baseball sense. Then you can play some of your young players and feel a lot more comfortable doing that. You might be mathematically alive, but you could be 9 games out in the wild card and handful of games to play. You're out of it. What kind of crowds would you get, you think, going into that 13 to 16? It might be a lot of the similar things that we're seeing here this last week.
I don't think there's any way to change that. I don't think it matters what happens with the Yankees, and I don't think the Brewers series is going to draw well. September generally is hard anyway if you aren't in the pennant race, and the Cardinals are not going to be. So I'm guessing that the crowds are going to be small, but politically with the players, I think it's more difficult to sit a guy like Goldschmidt if you do have a mathematical chance, because the players are going to think, and the manager is going to believe, that he's the one that still gives them their best opportunity to win. But what we're talking about is if the Yankees would sweep them and put them out of their misery, then you get a chance to play Burleson at first base. And then you get a chance, you're bringing Ciani back. Maybe you play Ciani and Scott in the outfield along with Newt Barr. There's a lot of different things you can do. Maybe you bring a guy like Gorman back and move Donovan around. There's a lot of different things that you can do. But I just, since the team is not going to be a playoff team, would prefer that I see the kids down the stretch.
Yeah,
and the best way to do that is to be out of your misery. 573
says the average fan in the seats has no idea who the owner or GM is and has no opinion about how things are run. They go to games for fun. There are better ways to spend money right now.
You think the average fan in the stand doesn't know who's the front office is?
That's where I was going. I don't know about that. I think in talk radio, we are so involved, deep dive into understanding and trying to understand the business side of it and who runs it and who the owner is. If I had to put a percentage of it, maybe 25% don't know. They just go to the ballpark because it's a thing to do. Our family goes every summer, and we're going to take a trip to St. Louis, and oh yeah, that guy Mozeliak, he runs the team, and oh yeah, the DeWitts, they're the owners of the team. I think a lot of fans, maybe 25% is too much.
Yeah.
Maybe 15% just go to take their family and say, we don't know who runs this thing, but we're just here to enjoy a game.
Dan, over the years, you might have done 100, maybe more, events with Mo with season ticket holders.
A ton.
Did you ever have one that wasn't completely full?
I don't think so.
I remember Bill DeWitt saying the night before they the night before they fired Matheny, right? The night of the Matheny firing, they had one of those after the game and after rain delays.
Randy, I was there.
And it was packed, right?
I emceed it.
They'd gotten smoked, right?
They had just lost. It was a day game on a Sunday, I believe, against the Reds. And you're right. There was a rain delay. And I actually Mo said something to me beforehand. He said, we just made a big change, but we're not going to, talk about it here. I said, obviously, I'm not going to bring it up. And that's when that happened. To your point, the place was packed. The season ticket holders, and there's a season ticket holder base right around 25,000.
Yeah.
And so when they do those season ticket holder appreciation days and nights, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's rare in those instances would you not see the place just packed. Yeah. It's Cunningham's corner down the left field line. Yeah. They have them all the time there, and it's great. I mean, They look at that as being, okay, the fans are invested in us. We need to pull back the curtain a little bit and give them, some insight, which Mo is great in those and is great in those. He does give you some insight into what's going on with the team.
This from the 314. None of my family has any clue about the front office. I do because I listen to y'all. Thank you very much. We appreciate that, 314. From the 573, not talking about season ticket holders, average fan that goes to 2 or 3 games a year. Okay, sure. There are going to be casual fans, but I still think this is a different market, and my guess is that if you go to a game, you said maybe 20, I'll go 15 maybe that don't know, but they do know what the record is. They do know that the team isn't good.
Yes. It's such a small percentage of people who don't listen to us. So, I mean, his family obviously is in that 4% of the city. So, it's unfortunate for them, but still. Brandon on the YouTube chat, if we don't pay the salary of the players, then the front office doesn't need to reduce payroll next season, right? Based on attendance. That's how this works, correct?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
If everything you're getting is from local and national TV and your other little revenue streams, then I'm confused by the comments, Mr. DeWitt III.
Yeah, and I don't think, I do know that this is not something that the fans caused. The issues here were caused strictly by the front office and the development of young players. But if the payroll goes down by $50 million next year, if you don't have Goldschmidt, if you don't have Lynn, if you don't have Gibson, you've already gotten rid of Edman and his $9 million for next year. You probably don't have Carpenter. You don't have Crawford. So let's assume that the payroll goes down $50 million. Is your team going to be much worse? I don't think it is.
I don't either.
I think your team's going to be fine, if not fine, but it's going to be the equivalent of what you have now, but with a chance to get better.
And if some of these young guys fall flat on their face, so say it's McGreevy, it's Graceffo, Quinn Matthews comes up, doesn't have success initially, I think fans would be okay with that. I think they'd say, well, they're giving these young guys a shot. I'm okay with that. If you bring back the same band back together, They will not take kindly to that. And let's face it, Randy, I mean, Mo says it all the time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Mm-hmm. He's used that a lot. Something has to change.
Einstein quote, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. But something has to change.
Yeah, and I do believe that the Cardinals' expenditures during the 24-25 offseason will be more in line with coaching and player development than in player acquisition. We heard that from John Denton at the trade deadline. The front office was told by ownership, don't plan on making trades and increasing payroll this trade deadline or during the offseason. My guess, and the Cardinals haven't spent a lot of money wisely anyway. My guess is that the payroll will drop dramatically, but you'll have young players and you'll have a team that'll have a chance to get better.
And I think fans would be okay with that.
Yep.
And your core is still coming back, minus potentially Goldschmidt. If you brought Goldschmidt back at $10 million, would you be okay with that?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
I am too. But bringing back Gibson, bringing back Lynn, I think that would frustrate some fans. I'm okay with Gibson coming back. I think he's been fine. But at that price tag, and if you're going more towards the youth, then it's not going to be a sellable idea to fans.
And because you already have the veterans under contract, figuring Palante is going to be there. You've got Gray under contract. You've got Michaelis under contract. You've got Matz. You've got Fetty under contract, plus Palante. I don't want Palante to be the 6th guy or Matz to be the 6th guy. Have those guys, and then when Steven gets hurt, love Steven, but he's hurt all the time. When he gets hurt, I would rather have it be McGreevy that steps in or Graceffo that steps in or Matthews that steps in rather than Steven Matz.
And let's go back to this, too, just for a second. Tommy Pham, by all accounts, we talked about it yesterday, put on waivers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said Matz. I meant Kyle Gibson. Yeah, Tommy Pham waivers, right.
So basically you have, from the trade deadline, depending on what happens with Pham, Fetty for Edman.
Yeah.
And that's, so you substitute the $9 million for roughly 5.5, $6 million, and you get a guy in your rotation. I'm okay with that. And I thought that this would be I don't know if you agree with it. I thought this would be a jump start to their final push, getting Fetty, getting Pham.
Absolutely.
Even getting Armstrong. Yeah. I thought there was going to be more out of him.
He didn't pitch bad.
He pitched okay, but you really have nothing to show for that deal with Dylan Carlson, which is a head scratcher to an extent. Yeah. But that's what you got in the trade deadline.
And I'm not so sure, Dan, what we would have seen if we would have seen Tommy Edman. I don't believe that Tommy Edman's relationship with the Cardinals ended well because of the wrist injury, and he's playing for the Dodgers. I don't think he would have played for the Cardinals this year.
Yeah, where would you put him? You're not going to put him at short.
I don't think he wanted to play for them.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think he wanted to play. I think he knew that next year was going to, heading into free agency, next year was going to be his year. I don't think he wanted to waste his time, for lack of a better term, with the Cardinals of 2024.
And where was he going to play?
Yeah.
I still go there.
Right.
And if you're going to be a free agent, you got to play. And it looks like the Dodgers will utilize him all over the place, which the Cardinals could have done. But if you look at the writing on the wall, and if you're trying to reduce payroll, and you have a Ciani, and you have a Scott, and you got Brendan Donovan can play the outfield, you got Burleson, not to say time was going to be limited, but you're going to miss some games that maybe you play every day at other places.
And Tommy Edman is the quintessential Dodger. Max Muncy moves all over the place earlier in his career. Turner moved around earlier in his career. Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, all those guys that play infield, outfield, can play multiple positions. Tommy Edman fits in perfectly as a Dodger.
He does seem to be that way. Chris Taylor, I mean, I think about how they used him. Kike Hernandez, that's Tommy Edman.
Absolutely. That's Dan. I'm Randy. And coming up next, we're going to talk some golf. The golf was fun yesterday, man. That Scotty Scheffler, he's pretty good. Jay Delsing joins us
10-shot lead, Randy.
Unreal. Next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals get out of their 4-game series with the Padres with a split thanks to a 4-1 win yesterday afternoon. Sonny Gray goes 6 innings, allows 3 hits, 1 earned run, strikes out 4, and allows 1 home run for that earned run. The Cardinals will be back in action starting a 3-game series against the Yankees tonight, 6:05 for the first pitch. And college football kickoff last night. Mizzou with a 51-0 drubbing of Murray State. Kansas 48-3 over Lindenwood, and Illinois 45-0 over Eastern Illinois. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Jay Delsing and Danny Mack host Golf with Jay Delsing Sunday mornings, 8 to 10 here on 101 ESPN. And we always like talking to Jay every Friday morning at this time. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. Did you guys like the little GIF I sent you last week when you were talking to the Orange Whip guy?
Yeah, that was great. Where did you get that?
It's from Animal House. Orange Whip.
Yep, I got it.
Yeah, and I didn't realize there was as much you could do with the Orange Whip. I use it to warm up, but when a golf teacher says throw your club at the ball, that's what the Orange Whip causes you to do, isn't it?
Well, it's what it is. What you want to do with that Orange Whip is you want to lead with the hands, Randy, so that the club head stays back a little bit, and then it comes down really, really fast and really, really quickly. And that's what loading the shaft really does. That's what the Orange Whip. So I get this asked to me all the time. How do I hit it further? How do I hit it further? And most amateurs will throw the club. We'll throw the head of the club too soon, and we want the head of the club getting into the hitting area a little bit later. And the Orange Whip, because of the whippiness and the counterbalance in the handle, does that just beautifully. It's awesome.
It's a great tool.
Hey, Jay, Keegan Bradley wins the BMW championship last weekend. He is the captain of the Ryder Cup. Number one, could he play as a captain? Could you see that happening? He could play his way onto the team just by what he's doing on the course, but he's the captain of the team. And then secondarily, what does this do for the President's Cup and a potential spot for him on that team?
Oh, Danny, it was awesome to see that the BMW championship, which is coming here to St. Louis in 2026, is phenomenal. It moves around every year, and I think it's going to Baltimore next year and then here into St. Louis. And it's one of the most popular tournaments on the PGA Tour schedule. First of all, it's a playoff event. It's a small field. You get a great field, though. And having Keegan Bradley win, he was the last guy in. So he was the 50th guy on the points list, and he gets in, wins the championship, and now I think he's a lock for the President's Cup team. And this throws the Ryder Cup into an entirely different place if you're going to get a captain that has earned his way on. Now, he'll never be able to pick himself, even though he might be some of his vice captains say if he doesn't finish in the top six, he doesn't have an automatic exemption. He probably will not pick himself because it's just too much to try to play and to captain the team. But if he doesn't and earns the top six, it'll be crazy. And this Ryder Cup is going to be insane up at Bethpage anyway. It's next year. It's this time of the year next year. And Bethpage, we have Nathan Carnes, who's just a great guy. He's the national secretary of the PGA of America on the show this week, and he was talking about some of the things that they're going to do at the Ryder Cup, and it's just a super world-class event.
Jay, before we continue here, the text line is outraged that I said Animal House. Just a brain fart. It's Blues Brothers. I know that Orange Whip is from Blues Brothers. It was happens.
Blues Brothers. So. I knew where you were going with that. Randy, on our show, we get close. We're not great at all the facts. We just get close. I get those emails all the time. I'm like, Phil Mickelson didn't win 48 times. I'm like, nobody cares except his wife. I don't know. It's 47. It's okay. We're close.
Hey, Dan and I were talking off the air. Colin Morikawa yesterday at Eastlake, birdies 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And he's in the hunt, even though he started way behind Scotty Scheffler, who started at 10 under. I want to start with this. Do you think Morikawa over the course of the weekend can track Scheffler down, or is Scheffler just that far ahead of everybody else?
You know, Scheffler doesn't have a great track record at Eastlake, but they have redesigned Eastlake, and so that gives me a lot of hope. I want Scotty Scheffler to win this tournament. I don't love the stroke advantage. I get why the Tour does it. They're trying to make the regular season more relevant. Scotty Scheffler's been dominant. Xander Schauffele has been the next best player. Those guys finishing 1-2 just make this week seem much more right. But you just never know. I mean, Rory McIlroy came from way back last year, and Scheffler didn't have a good week. So it's really hard. It's really hard to tell. But I just love watching these young players, these modern players, when they get hot. They just dominate. It's unbelievable to what they can do to a golf course, and with their length, and then with the skill, with the putting and the chipping, and they just make it look so easy.
Jay, what's the most consecutive birdies you've ever had?
Down in Memphis, I don't know if it was 95 or 96. I made 7 in a row.
Ooh.
I birdied 2 through 8 on the front 9, and then Mike Kelly's like, "What happened on number 9?" I'm like, "You just made a par." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." Yeah, it was one of the. So every once in a while, the game would give, and I wish I had appreciated that, Randy and Danny, so much more while it was going on, because I wound up having all those other times where no one's ever asked me how many bogeys I've made in a row, and I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but there's a lot of them.
Well, you don't want to keep track of those. Those are out. You don't think about those. You move on. That's right. They're out. This weekend, we've got Tim Heitman and Eric Engler from the Ascension Charity Classic to preview that. Also, as you mentioned earlier, Nathan Carnes, who is the secretary of the PGA of America, which is a great get because he's our local guy. He is a head professional at Winghaven, and that means he's going to be the president of the PGA coming up here in 2027. But we also had Ian Baker Finch, who won the 1991 Open Championship. I thought the conversation was interesting. We talk about pace of play all the time among, going to your local muni or just playing around a golf with your buddies or whatever the case may be. But pace of play is actually an issue right now on the PGA Tour, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it really is, guys. It's insane how somehow the best players in the world can think they can play this slowly and make it okay. I mean, this is a 4-hour game. You guys, it is a 4-hour game and should remain a 4-hour game. And somehow, you play in a twosome and take 5.5 hours. It just makes no sense at all. There's way too much junk going on with aim point and all of these other things. It's fine to have those in there, but we need to either have some sort of really stringent shot clock or something. There are certain shots, you guys, in the round that need to take. You're going to need some grace period. There's a lost ball. There's a ruling. There's something like that. But that's not what we're talking about. Just generally speaking, this thing has to be sped up, man. Who out there likes playing golf that long? I mean, we all love golf, but it sucks. It's harder to concentrate. You start going, man, I got to get home. I got this to do. I got that to do. It's just too long. 4 hours is what it should be.
Hey, Jay, one more thing. For people that are golfers like us, and they're interested in new clubs, and next year you've got new clubs and new technology coming out, but coming up in the next month or so, last year's clubs are going to be on clearance. Is the advance in technology next year worth that much so that you should wait for next year and spend more, or is it a good idea to buy clubs this year that wind up being on clearance?
Oh, I go for the clearance stuff. The newest thing in golf technology is going to be this AI technology, and to see what it's going to do. But if you haven't bought new clubs in the last, let's say, 10 years, you will be amazed at how the technology has advanced it and made it so much easier. The sweet spot on most irons, you guys, now is somewhere around the size of a quarter to maybe even a half a dollar. And when we were kids, man, that sweet spot was like the size of a pencil head. It was really small. But we'll see about AI, but I wouldn't go rushing out there. I would stick with the current technology, and I would save some money. And, guys, can I do a little – I have 2 tickets to the City game this weekend, and I wanted to give them away to somebody, and I came up with an idea. I know you guys are going to know the answer to this, but if someone can tell me, Jay at jdelsinggolf.com, you have to spell my first name out, Jay, can tell me who finished second in the 2018 PGA Championship at Bell Reef. Who finished second at the PGA Championship at Bell Reef? Everybody thinks this guy won. He didn't win. But send me an email, and the 10th person will get 2 tickets to City if they want to go watch City play this weekend.
All right. Can I just answer that right now? And I want to go see the City game.
you're out. You don't get it.
Yeah, Jay at jdelsinggolf.com. That's awesome, Jay. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Always good to hear your voice. And by the way, 1 week from this morning, the Ascension Charity Classic starts. I'm going to MC. It's Folds of Honor Friday, so I'm going to MC the first shot on Friday and hope to see you out there. And at some point during the weekend, I want to follow you around.
Oh, yeah, you got to come inside the ropes and help me figure out where the heck my ball went and whatever else comes up. But the Folds of Honor Friday, isn't it about time that golf starts with the anthem? I mean, all the other sports do. Come on, let's do it. This is going to be great. If the fans wear red, white, and blue on Friday, they're going to get a special little commemorative token. That's a little hot take.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. And yeah, we advise everybody. I will be wearing I will have Folds of Honor gear guaranteed.
Yeah, Folds of Honor is absolutely fantastic. They're a sponsor and a supporter of my show, and we've had Dan Rooney on the show. Gosh, I don't know how many times, and he's just such a cool dude. He is amazing, and what they do for the families of the fallen is fantastic.
Jay, thanks so much for the time. Have a great weekend.
You guys too. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Jay Delsing with us on the opening drive. Coming up, we've got Take It or Leave It. Text in 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-ho!
Yo-ho!
There.
It's a weekend yo-ho. Come on, we're yo-hoing. Let's go. I gave you a lot on that one.
Sure did. Your texts and Take It or Leave It next on 101 ESPN.
That shook you up.
I'm thrilled.
it or leave it.
Want to say something? Want to put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Time for TIOLI, Dan, Matthew, and Randy. And guys, Dak Prescott up for the new contract. He's the next guy up. And when he signs, will probably be the highest paid quarterback in football, highest paid player in football. Take it or leave it, Dak Prescott deserves it.
I'm going to take that. He is the captain of he's the leader of the Cowboys, and they need him. What would be, though, well, to me, he's in the driver's seat on this thing because they're going to have a bunch of dead money. They got a bunch of situations where they need to bring him back. They've taken care of CD Lamb. I think he's got the Cowboys backed into a corner, and my question would be for him is, what's the motivation to get this done right now? He could wait until the end of the season to get this done to make sure that he gets the right deal that he wants.
And if he gets to the end of the season, he cannot be franchised.
Right.
So he walks into free agency. I'm the same way. And number one, I think because of the fact that he is the Cowboys quarterback and because of the fact that he's playing for the team that by a huge margin garners the most revenue in the NFL, he does deserve it. Last year, he was third in passing yards. He was third in completion percentage. He was first in touchdowns with 36. He was the best regular season quarterback in the league last year. He does deserve, at this point right now, to be the highest paid guy.
Are you ready for these numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. You sure?
Ready.
This is like the fight.
Okay.
Anthony Rendon, 7 years, $245 million. Randy, he's making $235,000 per game. This is the one that'll get your attention. He has played in 247 of 667 possible games. The Angels, since he signed, have now used 28 different third basemen. Take it or leave it. This isn't only the worst contract currently in baseball. This will go down as one of the worst in the history of baseball.
100% take it. Especially, Dan, because of the extenuating circumstances. Garrett Cole wanted to come there. He's from there, and the Yankees gave him $324 million. And as a consolation prize to themselves, the Yankees took Rendon at $245. Why not just pay an extra $80 million for Garrett Cole and give yourself a chance to win? And by the way, I don't know how much due diligence was done. I don't know if he had admitted that he didn't really like baseball before he got to the Angels.
That's the unbelievable
part. But he doesn't like baseball.
So here's one that might be worse. I was looking this up. He signed a 7-year, $245 million deal December of 2019. We're talking about his former teammate in Steven Strasburg.
Yeah.
He made a grand total of 8 starts after that, went 1-4 with an ERA near 7. Now, he did help them win the World Championship. He was awesome when the Nationals won the World Series, but that may be one of the worst. And by the way, Garrett Cole, there are rumors circulating that he and Scott Boras want to opt out of the Yankees deal, which I think has 4 years and $144 million left. I can't see him getting more on the open market than what he's already going to get from the Yankees.
Hard to imagine that he could, unless they're thinking, and Boras has done that with the Yankees before when he did the A-Rod deal, opted out and got more from the Yankees. One thing about Scott Boras, he won't opt out unless he knows there's more there somewhere.
How about Jordan Montgomery saying that he really screwed things up and
butchered the offseason?
Butchered the offseason was the comment that he made.
Let me give you one more, and I don't know that this will rise to the level of Rendon in 7 and 245. But how about Chris Bryant in 7 and 182?
That's a pretty good one. Chris Bryant, former MVP with the Cubs, so he's got 182 over 7 years. Hasn't stayed healthy, hasn't played, shell of his former self. In the first 2 seasons of that deal, he played only 122 games, Randy.
That's amazing.
Hit 259, 15 home runs, and he's now 31 years old. So that'll go down as a really bad deal. Patrick Corbin is a bad deal, 6 years, 140 to get him away from the Arizona Diamondbacks and going. I think you can make a case a little bit for Giancarlo Stanton. Cardinals may have gotten off the hook with that one. They wanted him to come to St. Louis, but he winds up signing with the New York Yankees. That has not been a good one because In 2018, he played 158 games, and since then, he's played 391.
Not great.
Nope, not at all.
Matthew, what do you got for us?
Take it or leave it. Despite all the moves the Blues have made in this offseason, you still do not have them as a playoff team this year.
I'm going to leave that. I have them as a borderline playoff team. I think that in the last week of the season, they'll be battling for a playoff spot.
Kind of like this last year, or even just a little bit further than what we saw last year. Because they were still mathematically alive with a couple weeks to go.
Yeah, I like this roster better than I liked last season's roster.
I do too.
Because I just think it's going to get better.
So I think they're borderline as well. Yeah. And the difference will be the guy between the pipes, Jordan Binnington.
Take it or leave it. One of the biggest problems with the Cardinals' development is how much they move around the players defensively.
I think there's part of that is true, because Brendan Donovan then would have to play, in my mind, second base every day. And you mentioned it earlier, Randy. Do you play Siani and Scott together, or is one platooning with the other? Burleson at first base. That's part of a rebuild or retool, if you will, if Goldschmidt doesn't come back. So that's some of the maneuvering that they would have to do this year.
And part of it, to answer the question, and I'm going to take it, there's not much forethought into the moves. For example, Jordan Walker never playing the outfield when the Cardinals had both Arenado and Gorman, and knew that if Arenado opted out, that Gorman was going to play third. Jordan Walker should have been playing the outfield well before the day that Harrison Bader got traded. Same thing with Gorman. Why didn't Gorman play second base before that spring training that he got down to Florida and started playing second base? It seems like there are opportunities for the Cardinals to play players at a new position in the minors that they don't take advantage of.
I don't know if this is truly an option. I would think it's on the table, potentially, and I know you've talked about it, and it's a logical point, but Jordan Walker at first base.
Yeah.
Just give him some time in the minor leagues. If you're moving on from Goldschmidt, and the logical, and we don't know if that's going to happen, and the logical progression then for the Cardinals, I would think, is Burleson at first, but maybe another option for Walker would be at first base. Let him just play a few games here and see what happens.
I want to know who my best first baseman is. I want the guy that's able to scoop. Because a first baseman's going to be involved in 20 plays a game at least, right?
Yep.
A right fielder might be involved in 4 or 5 in a really busy night for a right fielder. So I want to have the best first baseman among Burleson and Walker at first, and then either of them can play right field. They're both at least league average for right field, and then move the other one to right field.
I'll take Walker's arm in right.
Yeah.
He's got a big arm.
But I like his height at first.
And I do too.
And he played third, so he had to get down and get ground balls as a third baseman.
And how many times do you really see, now you want strong arms in the outfield, don't get me wrong. That's baseball. You want it, it's 101. ESPN. But it's also, how many times do you see guys anymore get thrown out at third? How many times do someone's trying to stretch a single into a double, someone trying to score from second? It's not that often.
No.
You can kind of hide a guy in the outfield.
And if you do have a great arm, everybody knows it and won't run on you.
Yeah, that's the other thing, reputation.
Yeah.
We get an interesting text. Somebody says, look what they're doing with J.J. Weatherholt. They're playing him at shortstop every day, even though they have Wynn up above
Right.
him.
Great point. Yeah. So,
Speaking of young infielders, take it or leave it. It's time to call up Sajaci.
yeah, I'll take it. At some point, you got to bring him up, but
Wait 2 days.
You got to play him.
He's got to play.
That would be. I don't, like Mo said about Walker. You don't want to bring a guy up and have him sit on the bench.
I'd be intrigued to watch him. Dude
Yeah.
can hit.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he has a position. And if Donovan is your everyday second baseman moving forward, is Sajaci then a backup that can't play short? I mean, that's the key. You
Right.
got to have a bench guy that can play short, maybe go to the outfield. And if you have that combination, then you really got something as a backup.
And apparently his throwing arm leaves something to be desired.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you, Matthew.
Stay ready.
Coming up here on 101 ESPN, Cards and Yankees this weekend. Is there a World Series matchup we've missed more than the Cards and Yankees? That's next on 101 ESPN.
Day's top stories. It's the Opening Drive's Fresh Take.
Cardinals and Yankees meet in a 3-game series this weekend at Yankee Stadium. And we as Cardinal fans have had some opportunities to see the Cardinals and the Yankees in the World Series. And Dan, for me as a Cardinal fan, that's the one I feel like I missed out on most. I wasn't old enough to remember 1964. And we've had a couple of opportunities, and they would have been great series if we would have gotten them.
Yeah, 1996 is the one that comes to mind, and 04. But 96, the Cardinals are up 3-1 against the Atlanta Braves, and then Game 7 happened with Donovan Osborne. We talk about guys that sweat.
Oh, he sweated in 40-degree temperatures. Holy cow.
Sweating.
Yeah.
That thing fell apart.
And that was Joe Torre's first year away from the Cardinals and with the Yankees.
Which would have been fun to see.
Yeah.
The 04 team of the Yankees, let me throw some names at you. Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter, A-Rod, Matsui, Bernie Williams, Gary Sheffield. You had Jason Giambi, Kenny Lofton. John Olerud was on that team. That would have been fun to watch that team, which was a dominant team until, obviously, the Red Sox came back after being down 0-3, and they won that final game in just a blowout, 10-3 at Yankee Stadium. But that would have been fun to see. And I always looked at I think one of the great points in baseball history was the Yankees and the Red Sox always being. And you can, some fans will say, well, it was getting old to see these two teams always facing off against each other. From a national perspective of baseball fans, I always thought that was great for the game. And if you could have had two historic teams, and you had one in the Red Sox and the Cardinals, but just Cardinals, Yankees, there's just something about that we missed out on. I would have loved to have seen that.
No doubt. It would have been so much fun. And I'm looking now with that team. It wasn't a team, the 2004 Yankees were not loaded. They didn't have as many Hall of Famers as the Cardinals did that
year.
But you would have had A-Rod and Jeter, and A-Rod, by all rights, if he wasn't a steroid guy, would be in the Hall of Fame. Gary Sheffield is probably going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. Pitching-wise, Mussina. Is Mussina in yet, or is he? He's in. He got in.
Yep, he's in.
And then Mariano Rivera. That would have been a star-studded. And La Russa and Torre would have been a star-studded World Series.
I was just going to go to the managers, La Russa, Torre, and kind of the sidebar of really historic guys leading their franchises would have added to this. Here's the other thing, though, kind of advancing the story. I'm going to watch tonight because it's the Yankees.
Me too.
And even if the Cardinals were 30 games out, I'd watch because it's the Yankees. And I see and hear so much about Aaron Judge, and I want to watch him go up against your guy. So in this case, it's Eric Fetty going tonight, Kyle Gibson tomorrow, Miles Michaelis on Sunday. I want to watch that. To me, that's fun. I want to watch Juan Soto. I want to see the 1-2 punch of Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. And I always talk about it, Randy. I'm a baseball fan. I watch the games at night across the board and just flip around and because I love the game so much. You watch a Yankee game at Yankee Stadium, it's just different. I can't explain it. I've been to old Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you went there too. Yep. The history when you walked into that ballpark, the smell of it was different. And I like new Yankee Stadium. Don't get me wrong. It's got the amenities of a modern ballpark, but it's just not the same as what the old Yankee Stadium was like.
And when things are going well, whether it's Yankee Stadium or the Giants, wherever the Giants play, the New York crowd just sounds different.
It does.
It's loud, it's boisterous, and it's like a wall of sound that pops up.
I did the game that Roger Clemens got strikeout number 4,000 and win number 300. Yeah. He was matched up against, of all people, Jason Simon-Tachi. And walking into the ballpark and the feeling and the buzz in the air of maybe seeing not only one historic thing, but then two in the same game, that was pretty amazing. I have a picture, actually, where Renteria and Roger Clemens the next day, and Renteria was strikeout victim number 4,000. And they're arm in arm with Edgar putting up 4 digits as he strikeout number 4,000. Wow. It's pretty cool. And then after the game, you saw Roger Clemens walk out of the Yankee dugout and went and kneeled down at the mound and grabbed dirt from the mound. I mean, you just don't see those kind of things every day in sports, and to be there for that night was pretty special.
That's amazing. By the way, the only other World Series I feel like I missed out on as a Cardinal fan, 1982, we were very close to having Gene Autry against Gussie Busch.
That would have been fun.
Angels and Cardinals.
Yep, that would have been fun.
Yeah, two older owners that had been around and were just baseball fans. Otherwise, I don't feel like there's an American League team that I've missed out on in the World Series.
Is there a ballpark you missed out on?
That's an American League ballpark?
Yeah.
I think we've reached a point where there is not, because of all the interleague play. A ballpark in the World Series, a crowd that you would like to hear. Back in the day, maybe Oakland, when they had their run, the Moneyball run, if they would have ever made it, Cards and A's would have been interesting and fun, but that's about it.
What about the Cards in the 70s against the A's? That could have been fun.
That would have been really fun, yeah.
That could have been fun.
If we had Steve Carlton.
Yeah, it's a different story.
Is Camden Yards as great as everyone says? Because when people talk about like the perfect baseball parks, it always gets tossed in there with the legendary Fenway, Busch, Yankee Stadium. So I always wonder, does it hold up when you actually go to the level that people talk about it?
I'd say yes initially.
Okay.
Then I'd say no, because there was too many home runs hit until they moved the walls back. Mm-hmm. And now I say yes again.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's great.
I haven't been there in a long, long time, but it's a classic ballpark. And just the scent of Boog Powell's barbecue wafting through the entire area around the stadium makes it worthwhile.
I did Cal Ripken's last game. His final game, I was the sideline reporter for a national Fox game. And one of the things I remembered to make me love the ballpark even more than I did was seeing in center field, they turned all the lights out, guys, and they had Jim Palmer walking through.
Oh, cool.
And they had all these great Orioles walking through. And I get goosebumps thinking about it right now. But, just the history. I think what makes the ballpark, too, is just the history of the player. So, like, when you walk into Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, you're like, man, Roger Maris played here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mickey Mantle roamed center field. The Babe Ruth was here. That's what's so cool, and that's the way I still get when I think about Fenway Park and I think about going to Wrigley Field. It makes it so much fun to watch.
Yeah, pretty cool. That's today's Fresh Take here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, a big win for Mizzou in their opener against Murray State last night, 51-0. We're going to talk to Tigers radio analyst Howard Richards next on 101 ESPN.
I mean, we kicked off. It reminded me of what it was last year. So it was an awesome job by the crowd. And you could just tell our players, with that fast start, fed off the energy of the crowd.
3rd and 5, empty backfield. Cook. Easy. Catch. Burden. Touchdown. Showing the part early. Johansson. Picked off. Touchdown. Toriano Pride.
2 years ago, we had a big win and then kind of laid an egg the very next week because we thought we patted ourselves on the back, for a week. So we're not going to do that. We're going to get in there. We're going to figure out how to improve, and we're going to attack it this week in practice.
That is Mizzou head coach Eli Drinkwitz after Mizzou knocked off Murray State last night, 51-0 in Columbia. Danny Mack, Randy Carricker, and we head to the celebrity line, and our friend Howard Richards, the analyst for Mizzou football with Mike Kelly on the Tiger Network, joins us. And by the way, Howard moved his schedule around so that he could be with us this morning.
Awesome.
We really do appreciate it. H, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Randy, and hello to Danny Mack. I haven't talked to you in ages, man. It's so good to have you on ESPN Radio. I hear you in the mornings, but this is the first time we've had a chance to talk.
Hey, it's so nice of you, and I want to make you feel at home by saying it's 2nd and 10 from the Tiger 20. Howard, what did you think of the offense? So I'm just trying to give you my best, Mike Kelly. You guys are great. I listened to the game last night. It's great to hear your voice and great to have you guys back at work this fall. So looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
So, Howard, when we were talking yesterday, when I was saying I would be happy with 35-10, you said, I think we got to score 50. And they did. So what did you think?
That first quarter was amazing. I don't know that anyone could have asked for a better display of offensive and defensive football than what we saw in the first quarter, regardless of the opponent. I think there was only one incomplete pass, and I just thought this team they're right on schedule. Now, you get into the second quarter, there were some dips, and certainly you start rotating more players in. It wasn't as sharp, but still, I think overall Mizzou was able to accomplish everything that I think that they wanted to do. You got some players in and out. Got just to look at how your new young players are going to fit in, especially on the defense. But I think for the most part, this team is right where they need to be. Obviously, it's week one. You play an opponent that probably didn't challenge you in the way that you really needed to be challenged. But for our first game out, I feel okay with it.
Howard, I know that you're around practices all the time and down at Mizzou and talking to the coaches and dialed in. Can you give our fans that love Mizzou and love Luther Burden an idea of how they're going to use him this year in all different sets, combinations, special teams? Just how do you think they use Luther Burden?
They're going to use him in every way possible, from obviously catching the football. Slot, he's being in a slot position, he has the flexibility to, once he gets into the defensive backfield, he can move around and get open so much easier. They're not getting their hands on him, so his releases off the ball will be not as difficult as if he were in the outside position as he was when he first started. But you'll see him, taking that ball, taking some handoffs in the backfield, some jet sweeps. He might end up throwing the football at some point. But I think much like last year, trying to be as creative as possible to get, the best player on the field, the ball into his hands, and just let the magic happen with him.
Howard Richards with us on 101 ESPN. And Howard, the defensive line only came away with a couple of sacks, but I don't think that Toriano Pride interception return for a touchdown happens without pressure on the quarterback. That's sometimes how the sack stat can be misleading, because the pressure on the quarterback is what led to that. And by the way, a great catch by Pride to pick that one off too.
Well, first of all, just to go back to Pride, I saw him on at least 2 or 3 occasions in practices that I was there do that very thing. A bit of a gambler, but I think it was a very educated gambler. He went up and timed the ball perfectly and snatched it out of the air and was able to run it back. But, that doesn't happen without the pressure. And I think it was Zion Young, the transfer from Michigan State, who's all in the face of the quarterback Johansson. And, as you mentioned, the sacks weren't there. I mean, there were only 2, but there was a lot of pressure. They hit him and they forced him out of the pocket early and often. And those are the types of things that, again, even though you're not sacking the quarterback, you're forcing him to do things that make him uncomfortable, that constant pressure. So he's thinking more about getting hit as opposed to getting rid of the football and throwing the ball with accuracy.
There's so much excitement, obviously, around this program going into this year, top 15 in the country. And the head coach, Eli Drinkowitz, was imploring fans, hey, sell out the place. They did that. So give folks kind of a scene set. What was it like last night? What was the atmosphere like, even though it was Murray State, but just in general, what it was like to be down in Columbia?
It was high energy. It reminded me of my playing days when we sold out virtually every weekend. But just, people everywhere, the black and the gold, if you see the hill where the Rocc M is, you couldn't see it during the game because people were filling up that hill. But I thought the energy, the enthusiasm, the gates opened at 3:00 yesterday, 4 hours before kickoff, and people were starting to come in even at that point. I haven't seen that in a while. Tailgating, traffic jams all around Columbia, Missouri. The excitement was there. And people will say, it was only Murray State. But, maybe Mizzou fans are starting to realize we don't care who Mizzou's playing. It's football. It's Mizzou football. This is our team, and we're going to be there to support them. But give credit to Eli because he has always implored the fans to show up. And I think it means a lot to the players also.
Hey, Howard, put your coaching whistle on around your neck now. You win 51-0. What are some coaching points? What do you want to get better at before you play Buffalo on September 7th?
Well, there were a couple of deep ball misses by Brady Cook. They were very close, but those, you want to make those home run hits downfield. The first little touch pass intended for the tight end, just kind of flew off Drew's hands. You just want him to be as sharp as possible. He still ends up with 135 quarterback rating, completed, I'd say, only 63% of his passes. So he was a little under where he finished last year, I think around 66, 67%. But again, I think he was, he used his legs. He was decisive. But even as impressive was backup quarterback Drew Pine, who the transfer from Notre Dame and Arizona State or Arizona. This kid, I think, he's not a kid, he's a graduate. But he is exactly what you hope for in a backup quarterback. Extremely sharp, very decisive. The ball had a lot of velocity on him. And I think, Mizzou fans should be happy. Hopefully nothing happens to Brady Cook, but if something were to happen, or if you needed a spell for Cook, Drew Pine is the guy that you want in there. Very impressed by him. But again, just a little bit of some of the execution points, receivers running better routes. It wasn't much pressure. A couple holding penalties, things that just needed to be cleaned up, and that's what you get in the first game. So I think that they're pretty much on point where they need to be. You got a good look, you got a good display on video. Now go out and work on those things that gave you trouble on Thursday night, and get ready for Buffalo next Saturday.
Howard, you've been doing this a long time, whether it be a player or obviously as an analyst right now on the Tiger Radio Network. In these kind of games, how much does an offense really show? Meaning like the percentage of the playbook that they want to show to make sure they keep something in the tank behind the scenes moving forward in a season. So I guess the question would be, how much do you think they showed last night in terms of what they have at their disposal?
Yeah, I don't think they showed it all. There were a few plays that I kind of expected to see and didn't because I wanted to see how the new running backs handled them. I wanted to see, how the offensive line handled the blocking schemes, and didn't see those plays. So I know that some of the basic staples in their stretch run game, I didn't even see them. And that's fine. I think you do want to be relatively vanilla if you can be, especially in the earlier games. You know, it happened a little bit last year also. I don't know that Eli will admit to that, but you know, those first 2 games were, I'd say, a little unimpressive in 2023. But when Missouri needed plays last season, they were able to, you know, go deep in the playbook and bring them out. You don't want your opponents to know everything that you're going to do, because it makes it that much easy to game plan against you.
Howard, it was great to hear you and Mike last night, as Danny said, and looking forward to the Buffalo game on September 7th. Thanks so much for the time, and thank you very much for moving your schedule so that you could be with us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Glad to do it, guys. Hey, thanks for talking to me, and we'll chat again soon.
Yep.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate you.
That's the great Howard Richards with us on 101 ESPN. Coming up, I got beat in the fight yesterday, so we don't need a fighter.
Conviction, though, Randy.
I'll have some conviction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, as I teach you how to win these fights, it's been my number one thing. Conviction, because you go through a lot of different steps in your mind. Oh, it could be this guy, could be that gal. I just need you to be very forthright with your decision making.
Okay, good.
Especially when you're heading to vacation next week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good point. What's my all-time winning streak, Matthew? Do you know what my all-time winning streak is?
Oh, gosh.
It's got to be in the 20s, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we came up just short of a full
month.
I think we had something for 25 straight. I think it might have been 24.
It's ridiculous.
I think that might have been the run we were at.
See if we can do that.
That's ridiculous.
You can do that again.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The fight's coming up next on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Cards win behind another strong outing by number 0. This is Bradford Bruns with your Redbird report. Mere hours after scoring the game-winning run Wednesday, rookie Mason Wynn again found himself in the thick of matters versus visiting San Diego. The shortstop swatted a solo homer, series finale style, as St. Louis snagged a 4-1 victory, plus that all-important split. Wynn went 9 for 17 across the just completed set, and he figures to be heavily involved tonight against Marcus Stroman's Yankees. First pitch set for 6:05. Ali Marmol, meanwhile, rolls with Eric Fetty, who is 8-7 overall. Sonny Gray's 6th-inning turn about 16 hours ago should ensure a largely rested relief corps. Ryan Helsley, though, did throw 31 pitches over STL's last 2 contests.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals split with the Padres 2 games apiece thanks to their 4-1 win yesterday afternoon. They will start a 3-game series facing off against the Yankees tonight, 6:05 first pitch for Game 1. College football kickoff last night. Mizzou 51-0 over Murray State. Kansas beats up on Lindenwood 48-3, and Illinois beats up on their in-state rivals Eastern Illinois 45-0. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American State heating and air conditioning dealer.
.834 in St. Louis, the opening drive on 101 ESPN with Randy Carricker. I'm Dan McLaughlin. Matt Rocchio is with us as well. Randy is out of the studio because it's time for the fight. And Richie won yesterday as he beat Randall. Richie, good morning. Are you ready for day 2?
Good morning, and yes, I'm ready.
I'm curious, after someone wins, do they alert all family and friends of this momentous occasion in their life?
I would.
Of course, I did. In fact, my fantasy football team, their draft tonight, the Dirty Sanchez League, and those guys are going to try to listen in.
Let's keep that name away.
Understand?
Yeah, but let's just say your fantasy football team.
That would have been simpler, wouldn't it?
Probably. But things happen. It's live radio.
But then we wouldn't have that moment.
Yes, and what a moment it is in fight history. So you got those guys listening, those gals listening, family members listening, and the nerves have to be at an all-time high here for day 2.
You said it.
All right, here we go with question 1. Alongside J.D. Drew, which other player was sent to the Braves in a trade package that included Adam Wainwright? John Mabry, Eli Marrero, or Joe Girardi?
Eli Marrero.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
On to question 2 with Matthew.
Hit the layup. Bob Gibson's 13 shutouts still stands as a modern-era National League record, but which other Cardinals starting pitcher notched double-digit shutouts in a single season? Is it Joaquin Andujar, Matt Morris, or John Tudor?
I'll go Joaquin Andujar.
Is that your final answer, Richie?
That's my final answer.
All right. Question 3. Listed at 6'6", who is the shortest player to ever lead the NBA in rebounding for a season? Bill Bridges, Elvin Hayes, or Charles Barkley?
I think he's taller than 6'6", but that kind of threw me. But I'll go Barkley. Final answer.
All right. And on to question number 4.
The Cardinals own 3 of the 4 National League batting triple crowns in the live ball era, with 2 of those coming from Rogers Hornsby. Who owns the 3rd, which is also the most recent National League triple crown win? Is that Joe Medwick, Stan Musial, or Jim Bottomley?
Joe Medwick.
All right, Richie, let me go grab Randall.
Richie, nicely done today in the fight. How you feeling?
Decent at best.
Decent at best. I like you're playing humble after you got 4 correct yesterday, and that's just a smart way to play when you're going up against Megamind, who is in the building now. Grapeless. Sans grapes. Randy, did you already eat them, or just didn't have them?
I ate grapes, yes.
Okay, he ate grapes.
They were delicious.
Whatever you do, Randy, don't ask Richie about his fantasy football team.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
No.
We're going to stay away from that.
Lesson learned.
I'm not a very good fantasy football player anymore either. I used to be really good, but now I'm not.
It was more about the name of the fantasy football team, more so than the progress he's made with his roster.
Okay. I got to come up with a good name for my team, too. We have a draft next Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Big draft.
Big scouting weekend for me.
There you go.
All right. So you ready for question 1?
Ready.
Scouting weekend.
Yep.
Okay.
Ready.
Here we go.
Okay.
Alongside J.D. Drew, which other player was sent to the Braves in the trade package that included Adam Wainwright?
think we got Ray King. I think we got Jason Marquis. Dan, I think I'm going to go with number 8, Eli Marrero. Marrero as the other player with J.D. Drew to go in that trade for King, Marquis, and Waino.
Randy, Bob Gibson's 13 shutouts still stands as a modern-era National League record. Mm-hmm. But which other Cardinals starting pitcher notched double-digit which other Cardinals starting pitcher notched double-digit shutouts in a single season?
Double-digit shutouts. Okay, I'm going to roll the dice here. I'm going to go with John Tudor, 1985. 10.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, it is.
You were just kind of toying with us. Just admit it. You were toying with us.
I was thinking complete games at first, and then
I want the truth, and I can handle it.
And then I'll go with that. Then I thought, okay, shutout. So I believe he had 10 shutouts in 1985, including one dramatic one against the New York Mets. Yeah.
All right. Question 3.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Listed at 6'6", who is the shortest player to ever lead the NBA in rebounding for a season?
I should know this. And I am going to roll the dice here without the lifeline, Dan.
Remember, that is part of the rules. You do get a lifeline.
I know. But I'm going to go nickname 6'6", and assume that at some point he did lead the league in rebounds. I'm going to go with the round mound of rebounds, one Charles Barkley.
Randall, is that your final answer?
Round mound of rebound. I had to say the name, so yeah, that's going to be my final answer just because of the nickname.
I like it.
Thank you.
Conviction.
Mm-hmm. And Randy, the Cardinals own 3 of the 4 National League batting triple crowns in the live ball era, with 2 of those coming from Rogers Hornsby, who owns the 3rd, which is also the most recent National League triple crown win.
Gosh. Okay, let me think about this. Probably not Mark Grudzolani.
Okay, now I think he's playing with his food, Randy. Now, Dan, I think he might be playing with his food.
Here we go.
When I get Mark Grudzolani on this question, I feel like it.
It's like your Rice Krispies, and you're just pounding them into the milk, just dabbling a little bit, just to kind of, make everybody think a little bit.
Quack, quack. Ducky Medwick. I'm going to go with Joe Ducky Medwick, who, if I'm not mistaken, is buried in Sunset Hills in a cemetery there.
Interesting little tidbit.
1937, I'm going to go with Joe Ducky Medwick.
Is it one of like the big ones, or is it one of like those really tiny ones that like randomly pops up in a neighborhood?
I think it's a pretty big one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's his relatives, his descendants, I believe, still live in the St. Louis area, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, well, another very tightly contested fight, but no need for a tiebreaker today. We have an outright winner. Is it Richie, who gets the weekend to sit back, kick his feet up as he waits for his Hall of Fame opportunity on Tuesday? Or does Megamind shut him out now? Ring that bell.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis, with the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Richie, I am so sorry, sir. Randy Carricker got you, and he got you on a Cardinals question, which makes it, I think, a little bit worse.
Yeah, I knew he said Tudor, the 85 season. I was like, God bless, he's right. Yes. No lifelines, Randy. Way to rub it in.
the full Jack Buck. You got the Jack there because you went no lifelines. Let's go through the questions and answers. If you heard all Randy's, they were correct. Alongside J.D. Drew, it was, in fact, Eli Marrero who went there. Honestly, I just wanted to put that question in there to remind everyone that Joe Girardi played for the Cardinals. He was one of the options I threw in there, Randy, and just I always forget that he's there. And I was like, you know what? Let's get a question that I can throw Joe Girardi in as an option. Bob Gibson's 13 shutouts still stand as a modern era National League record, and it was in fact John Tudor who got 10 in 1985 for the only other Cardinal with double-digit shutouts in a season in that time frame. Listed at 6'6", he is the shortest player to ever lead the NBA in rebounding. Is in fact the round mound of rebound, the Chuck Wagon, the Prince House of Pizza, the Incredible Bulk, the Leaning Tower of Pizza, Bread Truck Boy Gorge, Food World, the Crisco Kid, the Wide Load from Leeds, Ton of Fun, and Good Time Blimp, Charles Barkley.
Now, if Randy would have gone through every one of those nicknames, then I'm done.
1986-87, he led the league with 14.6 rebounds per game. Listed at 6'6", everyone says he's probably more like 6'4". And the Cardinals own 3 of the 4 NL batting triple crowns in the live ball era. 2 from Rogers Hornsby, and the most recent one, in fact, Joe Ducky Medwick. So a jack for Randy Carricker today in a 4-3 win. Richie, thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show across the last 2 days. 7 correct across 2 fights. Very impressive,
Very
sir.
impressive. Well done.
I have time for one question to Dan, if I may?
As long as it's nice.
It is.
Okay.
That 2021 playoff game against the Dodgers that Chris Taylor hit the walk-off, were you announcing that game?
I was not. No, I was doing the pre and the post game.
I just remember the announcer saying as he got up, Taylor's won for his last 48 at-bats or something. I'm like,
I didn't do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks for not doing that to us.
No, I just threw things at my TV when it ended, just like everybody else.
Guys, thanks. I had fun. Appreciate it. You guys have a good holiday weekend.
You too. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Richie.
So this morning on the Immaculate Grid, as you know, Dan, I try to add a former Cardinal in. What you try to do is match a player. For example, player that played for the Cubs and the Red Sox and the Cardinals. I had Lynn McLaughlin. Heathcliff Slocum, one of my all-time favorite Immaculate Grids guys, played for the Cubs and the Orioles, and of course was a Cardinal. I was really surprised by this. 12% of respondents for a Red and a Red Sox, and this is without the Cardinal thing, took Bernie Carbo. 12%.
Is that right?
I would have figured Bernie Carbo would have been a 2% kind of guy.
I actually would have gone Bernie Carbo.
Really?
Now, the only reason I say that is because I have baseball cards with Bernie Carbo.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking as a kid, what a name, Bernie Carbo.
Yeah.
So I had he had the frizzy hair and all that stuff going under his hat. So that's how I remember that.
The other part of this is that the Cardinals don't have many guys that have played for them that have hit 500 home runs. You've got Albert. You've got McGuire. I think that might be the only 2 that have played for the Cardinals. So when you have a 500 career home run like a Red Sox that hit 500 career home runs, you can pick from Manny. You can pick from Ortiz. I took Babe Ruth. Orioles, I took Reggie because he played for them for half of a season. But he still got 8%.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then played third base and hit 500 home runs. I do have a Cardinal there. Played at least one game at third base.
Third base, 500 home runs.
At least 500 home runs. 703 home runs.
Oh, Albert. Yeah. I forgot he played a lot of third base, played left and right.
Yep. And then my guys that played third base for the Reds, it was Miguel Cairo. Played third base for the Cubs, the late, great Kenny Reitz, the Zamboni
That's
machine.
a good one.
Yeah.
You were mentioning how Joe Medwick is buried in South County?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
South County. George Sisler, who played for the St. Louis Browns, is buried in the St. Louis area. And I don't know if you remember this, but Ichiro came back. He broke the single-season all-time record, which was set in hits, single-season hits. I think it was 1920. Mm-hmm. He had 257, but actually had members of the Sisler family flown out to Seattle when he broke that record. And when he came back in 2009, he visited the grave during the All-Star game.
So cool.
He visited the grave of George Sisler.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. Okay. That's an amazing story.
By the way, Joe Medwick St. Lucas Cemetery in Sunset Hills.
Wow. Did not know that.
So now you know via radio.
The radio.
Coming up, we're going to talk to our buddy Jeremy Rutherford about what's going on with the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
news, notes, and nuggets. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford. Brought to you by Scott Lee Heating Company, a proud Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor.
Blues training camp right around the corner, and you can join 101 ESPN for the second annual Blues and Brews on Friday evening, September 20th at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. Get fired up for the Blues season at this outdoor street party that features live music from country music star Matt Stell and St. Louis's own Charles Glenn Group, plus appearances by Braden Shen, Jake Neighbors, Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg, Drew Bannister, and Blues alumni. Tickets just $20 and are on sale now. Learn more at 101ESPN.com. Let's go to the celebrity line and our Blues insider from The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford. The aforementioned Jeremy Rutherford joins us. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing better. I've told you before, I don't like coming on after the fight. If that small percentage chance that you lose, I don't like bad mood Randy. So I was glad to hear you pull it out, and especially with the round mound of rebound reference there. Yeah, I was in a pickup basketball game one time, and there's 10 guys, and they divide into the two teams. And I hear one of the guys yell, I got the big guy. And I'm looking around, who's the big guy? I don't see a big guy. And it taught me a valuable lesson in life. If you're looking around to find out who they're talking about, you're that guy.
Oh, you're the best. JR, would you say that angry, it's more passive aggressive, Randy, when we do that? It's not really...
On the listener's side, I just hear like dead silence for a second, and then I start thinking, okay, is there a question that Rocc might have made a little twisted or something like that? And I'm like, oh, there was that second question, and then I like, here comes Randy, and then he's attacking Rocc, and I love it. It's drama. It's great. But that's when I'm driving around, and I'm not coming on the next segment. When I'm coming on the next segment, I want you to win every time.
Well, this is really a sad day in the NHL, is it not, Jeremy, with what's transpired here this morning?
It really is, Danny. It's just, last night I started seeing the social media about Johnny Gaudreau, and there's an accident in Philadelphia, and could he be involved? And honestly, just couldn't sleep. Like, flipped through my phone most of the night. And, I'm 49 now. When you're younger, you're in your 20s, you hear a star athlete died or whoever died. You think about that athlete and who he is in the game and so on and so forth. And, all three of us, and I'm sure everybody else listening, I start thinking about the wife and the two kids. He's got two kids under the age of 2. He just had a young boy. And here's a guy who's overcome a lot, 5'9", probably standing on a chair, 160 pounds. He gets drafted in the 4th round. Nobody thinks that he can play in the NHL, even though he had an unbelievable college career, but he does, and he becomes a star player. Johnny Hockey. Everybody knows who you're talking about when you say Johnny Hockey. And so to hear the confirmation of the news this morning and just think about that family, and for those who haven't heard all the details, the fact that they're in that town for his sister's wedding, which is scheduled for tonight, to lose both brothers, Johnny and his brother Matthew, just absolutely devastating.
And JR, this is a guy, too, normally hockey players, not that he went and took a ton less money to go to Columbus, but he could have gone home. Philly was really interested in him, and he was all in on going to Columbus. And that's one of those cities, kind of like when a free agent comes to St. Louis, where it was a big deal for Columbus when Gaudreau not only went there, but wanted to be there.
Huge deal. Had all that success in Calgary with Matthew Tkachuk. They were just dynamite to watch. And then Matthew left, and Johnny was leaving, and he went to Columbus. And you're right, had a chance, probably could have gone to Philly. I think New Jersey was interested. I'm sure there were a ton of teams that had some interest in Johnny Gaudreau if they could afford him. And sure, he got paid. He got paid a lot of money to go to Columbus. But that was at a time where we remember Jarmo Kekalainen, who was the general manager at the time and used to be with the Blues. He said, I want people who want to play in Columbus. I'm having trouble finding these types of players who actually want to be here in Columbus. And here's a guy with his star power who handpicked the Blue Jackets, went there, a big contract, and just 2 years into it, we have this news today. So, I just can't imagine, first and foremost, the family, everybody involved in the Gaudreau family, but then that Blue Jackets family, too, who was just really excited to see his career develop in Columbus.
I would imagine when you mentioned the name Matthew Tkachuk that those two are probably very tight. So I'm thinking of him here this morning, too.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And if I'm not mistaken, Matthew did a podcast with Cam and Strick a week or so ago. And as you can imagine, one of the many texts that he got for winning the Stanley Cup, I think he mentioned one from Johnny Gaudreau, those guys being close. So I'm sure text, phone call, I'm sure Johnny was super supportive just a couple months ago for Matthew.
JR, you have a piece up at The Athletic, your reaction to the Blues coming in 16th in Corey Pronman's NHL prospect pipeline rankings. And one of the things that I thought about is that the Blues have so many guys that were prospects at this time last year that have graduated to the NHL. It's kind of like the Cardinals, too, with the prospects, because they have so many young players that aren't in the pipeline anymore but are still young major leaguers.
Yeah, and for people who hear the pipeline, Corey Pronman, who did that for The Athletic, and he's done it every year, that I can remember going back to 2017, it's under the age of 23. So we're just talking about 22-year-olds, and of course you got Dvorsky, you got Snuggerud. Actually, Jake Neighbors still fits in that bill because he's 22 years old. That project, he starts to reveal it a week ago, and he starts at 32, 31, 30. And honestly, I'm like everybody else. I'm thinking, I don't call Corey ahead of time and say, hey, where did the Blues finish? So, I'm waiting for the Blues to pop up. And they got down to 17, 16, and there we see the Blues. I thought they were going to be a little bit lower. I thought maybe 10, 12, but that's based on nothing. Like, I'm not as familiar with the prospects around the league as Corey is. I just know that the Blues have had a lot of success with their draft picks. On paper, it looks like they've got some good players. They've performed well at the World Junior Championships, so that shows something. And then also the college kids, the kids that are going to NCAA, have had some good success too. So it's funny, Randy. I squint whenever I read the comment section in some of these articles, and Blues fans not too happy with where they were at 16, and Pronman being a little bit down on Dalibor Dvorsky and what type of player he can be at the NHL level. So my boss actually asked me to write my reaction. So I have a reaction piece up at The Athletic, kind of reacting to where Corey put him, and there's a little more detail in that article.
One of the things about these annual pipeline rankings is very rarely does the team that has the best pipeline of young players wind up winning a Stanley Cup with those players.
Right, and if you look at the Blues, I think they were third the year after they won the Stanley Cup, but then it's fallen off since then. I look back at the past 5 or 6 years with Corey's rankings, we're talking 26, 24. I think they even dropped to 29 at one point. So, it's great to have a good pipeline. It's good if you're the San Jose Sharks right now to be near the top of that list, and then Chicago Blackhawks are number one on Corey's list, but it certainly doesn't guarantee anything in terms of a cup in the next 4 or 5 years. Just good young players, you got assets, and you got a chance to build something there.
Now, JR, I used to always go to Cap Friendly, and now it's gone. But Blues Friendly is here, so you can get up-to-date info on player contract details, the status of contracts, and a lot more. I can't remember a team doing something like this. It's pretty unique, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's unique, and so Pete, you're referring to on the Blues website, you can actually go there now and click on a player, and it'll show you, hey, Nick Leddy, next 2 years, 3 years makes this amount, and it's got the entire roster, just like those who are looking at Cap Friendly for all these years. If you're unfamiliar with Cap Friendly, it was a great website to go and kind of check out all these contract details. Danny, the first thing that I thought of when I saw that the Blues were releasing this information in terms of making it public on their website was a story that Bruce Affleck told me years and years ago. He said, I remember back in the 70s, nobody knew how much anybody made. Sometimes we'd be in the sauna just talking to guys after a practice or after a game saying, hey, what do you think Phil makes? Oh, I don't know. He probably makes about this or that. and they'd kind of share secrets in terms of who made what. So that information has kind of been private for years and years. Then in the last probably decade or so, we've gotten it from these independent websites, and now it looks like the Blues at least, and maybe some other teams are going to follow suit.
And JR, here we are only 3 weeks away from the start of Blues training camp.
How about that? And lots of battles. I know every year you go into it and you think that a lot of the spots are spoken for, and most likely they are, but I do think that with all this depth, all these one-way contracts, I mean, you're talking 15, 16 forwards with one-way contracts, or that you expect them to be here like a Jake Neighbors. And then on defense, 10 guys with one-way contracts. Of course, that includes Krug, who's probably not expected to be with the team this season, or at least at the start of the season. So there's a lot of players battling for those spots, and I think while we can say that most of the spots are spoken for. I think those 12, 13, 14 forwards and those 5, 6, 7 defense are going to be some fun battles to watch in camp.
Okay, JR, a two-parter here. Number one, national TV schedule released. Anything stand out with that? Number two, are you hearing anything about the local TV situation?
Yeah, it looks like I think they put the headline out yesterday, 11 national TV games. You know, guys, I can remember, I've been covering since 05, 06. You go back to some of those lean years, and I think there were just a couple national TV games. So the fact that even though we're 5 years removed from the Stanley Cup, the Blues still seem to find their way onto national TV a lot. That's a good thing. And, of course, they'll be on at the Winter Classic this year at Wrigley Field. And, with Bally and with the Blues situation with that, status quo for now. Like, I haven't spoken in detail with people close to the situation in the last couple of weeks. But you do see these headlines around the country. I think it was the Anaheim Ducks are going to move away from Bally. And so you're starting to see more and more of the streaming. Yeah, I don't know where this is going. It's obviously a story we're going to pay attention to and monitor. But in conversations with Blues people within the last 6 or 8 months, they're prepared to go whichever direction this takes them. And I know that the Valley situation, because of their parent company, has kind of taken some hits, I guess, in court and with the funding in the past couple months. So it's going to be tough, but you just kind of cross your fingers for your friends who are involved in that business and hope that everything works out.
And if I were the folks over at Channel 4 that ran Matrix Midwest, the new 24/7 channel that they are developing and have on the air right now on Channel 32 locally, I think it's Channel 186 on Spectrum, and the Blues became available, I would pursue them, I think.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I heard that rumor report as well, and I think that would make a lot of sense. I just think we're on the horizon of a lot of change in that industry, and I think once one team organization finds some success, or the league is telling you what kind of success you can have, I think a lot of the teams are going to follow suit. And I don't know that we'll see a bunch of them doing their own thing. I think we'll see something similar throughout the leagues.
JR, great stuff as always. Have a great weekend, a great long weekend, and enjoy, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, you guys too. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. That is Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider from The Athletic, here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, we've got a quick rush hour reset for you on the opening drive.
Morning Drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
Cardinals open a 3-game series at Yankee Stadium in New York tonight. The Cardinals will send Eric Fetty to the mound against Marcus Stroman. 6:05 St. Louis time as the Cardinals, after winning yesterday and taking the last 2 against the Padres, will try to extend their winning streak to another 3-game winning streak.
Oh, yeah. Randall, they are 10.5 out in the Central. They are now 6 out in the wild card. So as you mentioned, Stroman and Fetty tonight. You got Kyle Gibson, Will Warren going on Saturday. Miles Michaelis will start for the Cardinals on Sunday. Cardinals runners in scoring position still a problem, but not yesterday. They were able to weather a storm of leaving 11 men on base, but still won the game. So mathematically hanging in there, and it should be fun to watch anytime you get to see the Yankees and the Cardinals play.
Meanwhile, Mizzou rolled Murray State last night in the Tigers opener for 2024. 51-0 was the final in Columbia. Kansas takes care of Lindenwood 48-3. And we were talking earlier in the show about how Mizzou was a 50.5-point favorite. They kick a field goal in the final 2 minutes to get to 51. So some people were very happy with that field goal. Some were not. Right?
I was very pleased, I got to be honest.
Okay, there you go. And then Kansas was a 49.5-point favorite over Lindenwood. Lindenwood kicks a late field goal, and then Kansas doesn't score late, and KU wins by 45 after being a 49.5-point favorite.
Wasn't real happy with that, Randall, that field goal. Just got to tell you, I'm trying to be honest. We're honest on this station.
Yeah, no, you have friends that were affected by that.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I thought the Mizzou game was interesting. I mean, they lead 28-0, and then the offense kind of fell asleep a little bit, which is understandable. They had a botched gimmick play. They had some holding penalties, clock management issue at one point. I thought what stood out to me was Brady Cook missing some deep throws. Howard Richards talked about that. We talked about it earlier as well. But the atmosphere was great. The atmosphere was outstanding. Matter of fact, in terms of atmosphere and as far as All-American sports last night, Mizzou Murray State had the biggest crowds, over 62,000, nearly 63,000. NC State, WCU and Raleigh was 56. Dodgers Orioles was 53. Southern Utah was 52, and then you had Minnesota and UNC in Minneapolis was just over 50. So the crowd in American collegiate sports or professional sports was the biggest in Columbia, Missouri last night.
And if you are a player that's being recruited by the University of Missouri and maybe some other schools, and you see that they've got the student section down low, and you see all the yellow in the stands and all the fun that people are having, the kids with the shirts off in the front row, and you watch the team, and it's a fun team to watch play. It's got to be a fun team to play for. I would think that atmosphere would lend to recruiting success.
And it's Murray State.
Yeah.
You're saying, okay, this is a top 15 team in the country. And when you're top 15, it's the best players in the country with the best atmospheres. And that's what kids want to be sold on. When they show up and you know that they're bringing a lot of recruits in, they want to see the crowd packed and they want to see the best competition they can go against. Because a lot of these guys are thinking, I'm going to get to the next level, and this may be a place I can do it at.
The Fighting Illini also won 45-0 over Eastern Illinois. They ran for 246 yards. Luke Altmaier going 19 of 24 for 213 and 4 touchdown passes for the Fighting Illini, and they're off to a 1-0 start.
How'd our buddy Kerry Davis do? I bet he nailed it.
I would think so, yeah.
He was on the call last night for the Fighting Illini, so an easy win for them, and then it starts to get a little tougher for all these teams moving forward.
Yeah, the Big Ten is going to be tough.
And absolutely.
Speaking of tough, it was tough for Colorado. They held off North Dakota State, had to actually rally late to win the game 31-26. And I would have hated for Deion Sanders to have lost that game. His head might have exploded when he met the media.
So you and I have different wants in this world, because that would have been the funniest thing in the world.
I'll tell you this. I watched that game intently, and their offensive line is terrible. Their defense, terrible. But watching Travis Hunter play,
he's pretty good.
He's going to be top 5. Two-way superstar. He lived up to the hype. He had 7 passes that he caught for 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. He can be a lockdown guy on defense. And Shedeur Sanders was awfully good, too. Threw for almost 450 yards.
Yeah, really
He's
good.
legit.
By the way, this morning on ESPN.com, Matt Miller, on a piece about the upcoming draft, has Luther Burden being the top non-quarterback drafted in the 2025 draft.
Where do you think Sanders goes? Is he one or two, you think?
I would think, yeah, he's at the very worst top 10. I think we'll have to see how things play out, but his physical skill set would lend itself to being one or two. If Drake May is going to go with the third pick, then Sanders has to go in the top 10.
He was 26 of 34, 445 yards, 4 TDs last night in their win over North Dakota State. And again, they probably should have lost the game. They pulled it out late. And fans, I mean, he's a lightning rod when you're talking about Deion Sanders. But unless they get offensive line play, unless they get some kind of defense, it's going to be one of those years that they had a year ago.
Yep. And finally, tragic news out of New Jersey. Columbus Blue Jackets forward Johnny Gaudreau, age 31, and his brother Matthew, 29, were both killed when they were struck by a vehicle while riding bicycles last night. Their sister was to be married tonight, and the two brothers both passing away, and just tragic news for the NHL and for the Columbus Blue Jackets specifically.
Yeah, shocking news when we got to the studio today, and it's shocking for the NHL, really shocking for the entire fan base of anybody that watches sports and follows sports. It's a terrible news day in that regard.
That's Dan, I'm Randy, and that is today's Rush Hour Reset here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, if you're getting ready to tailgate next weekend at Mizzou, we've got a great idea for you. It's coming your way on 101 ESPN. Mizzou home game is September 7th against Buffalo. And you might have gone and tailgated last night and thought, you know what, we need to upgrade our chips game. Well, we've got an idea for you. Our buddy Ken Dubinsky, who works with Mizzou with NIL, is with us. And Ken, first of all, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Randy. That's quite a tease you got.
Well, you've got some Luther Burden chips. Danny's going to hold up the chips.
Put it right in front of my face, which is better than looking at my face.
A big bag of chips.
There you go.
Here,
that's the large size. Yeah, get a little closer to that mic there.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so we're excited. We've been. It's the third year we're doing chips with Luther. We introduced it literally right before his first game as a college player, and it really had a great response. And then last year we added and partnered with Vienna, obviously, and added the honey barbecue twist to their red hot riplet and got a great response. Then the last year, Luther loves ranch dressing, puts it on everything, so we added ranch to his chips and made it a ranch hot honey red hot riplet. And then this year we've had a lot of requests for it, so we did a larger bag, called it a tailgate size, available at all Schnucks stores in the area. And Schnucks has been a great partner the whole time, and so we're excited to get this out there.
How'd you get involved in all this stuff?
Well, mutual friend of Randy and mine, Demetrius Johnson. DJ has been a longtime friend, and he knew my background in product development, and he was representing Luther, and he had an idea to do a chip with him, and he asked me if I knew anybody who could do it, and we partnered on it with Vienna, and that's how it got started.
Now, the players get involved, right? I mean, they say, no, I kind of don't like this, I like that. Can you change, like the ranch thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. No, we in the initial iteration, we definitely ran through a couple different iterations of the seasoning with Luther, and certainly on the ranch as well. But he definitely, I had talked to somebody who had lunch with him, and he talked about how much ranch dressing he put on his wings.
Finely tuned athlete, right?
Yes,
wings and
exactly.
ranch dressing.
So I went and tried some ranch dressing on the existing chips, and it was pretty good. So we did it, and now that I tell you, the ranch is now Luther's favorite.
That's great. And you told us about the cookies earlier in the season. A lot of Mizzou players are benefiting from the NIL world. Is there a Mizzou football player, a starting player, that isn't benefiting from NIL right now, you think?
Oh, no, I think everybody is, yeah. It's a great opportunity, and really it's something that a lot of people think should have been happening all along, and it is a changing world, and next year's obviously some big changes, but NIL, as far as somebody like the products that we're doing, will continue because the schools are going to be able to pay the athletes directly next year, but then they'll also be able to make literally off their name, image, and likeness, which is like what we do on the chips and the cookies that you mentioned.
So you mentioned a cap next year, right?
Yeah.
What'll that be?
So it's still to be finalized, but there's a number of court cases. The House case is the most popular, most prominent. Basically, the result is that still has to be approved by a judge, but each school that wants to will be able to spend up to $22 million across all sports, and they will directly pay athletes with that.
And what about if, for example, Luther Burden, who's represented on a national level now by the William Morris Agency, if he wants to be outside the school and somebody's willing to offer him $22 million, can he still get it as an individual?
He can. The stipulation is that they have to get, if they're going to do a deal, like Luther just did a deal with Nautica. He's got a billboard in Times Square.
Cool.
Which any Mizzou fan, any Mizzou fan that's in New York will look at that with great pride. So they can make additional money on their own. But it's got to be, I think they call it commensurate wage. So, that they're not paid more than anyone else would be for that particular purpose.
And I would think that they'll have to, something's going to have to be fixed here, because Luther Burden is obviously the most prominent and marketable Mizzou player, right?
Exactly.
So to me, if we're selling name, image, likeness, you should be able, this is theoretically on my part, I don't know what the NCAA or the courts are thinking, but it seems to me like if you are a more popular player, Patrick Mahomes is getting endorsements that Kyler Murray is not. You should be able to sell your name, image, likeness for what it's worth.
Exactly, and they still will be able to do that. So the school will pay decide how they break up that money. Not every school is going to have to do that. It's a matter of whether they want to participate at the highest level, and there's a lot of things that'll probably happen from that in terms of maybe a smaller, large division. So that didn't sound very good, but
no, it's true.
Yeah, kind of a subset of the current Division I is what I mean. So yeah, but then name, image, and likeness, they still will have a right, just like Patrick Mahomes does, to sell his name, image, and likeness and do whatever commercials he wants to do. Again, the only thing is, as you said, that it's commensurate. They can't pay somebody $2 million to put up a post that says, go to Arby's.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, pull back the curtain a little bit. I think in any walk of life, if you're a sports fan, you want to know more about the individuals, you know, the guys that you follow. So tell me about Luther Burden, what it's been like working with him, what kind of kid he is, the things that he likes, all that kind of good stuff.
I tell you, he really is. I said this yesterday about him and Brady, the two highest profile guys. They really are what you want your college athletes to be. Really good kids, represent well, obviously great players, but represent the school well off the field as well. But Luther, I tell you, it's been neat. I've really been honored to work with him for now the third year, and to see him grow the way he has. You know, Randy and I, again, our mutual friend who unfortunately passed away, Demetrius Johnson, was a really great impact on him, mentored him that first year in representing him. But he's he really he's a great teammate. I mean, he could have, each year with the transfer portal, he could have gone elsewhere for a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of people, supposedly a lot of offers being made, but he came to Mizzou because he wanted to kind of start a trend of local guys staying home, and he's done that. And you see the results with recruiting, especially in the St. Louis area, and there's so much of a St. Louis impact on the team. But he's a great kid. Has really done a lot of great things for Mizzou, and I think certainly picked in the top 5 to 10 at the most in the draft next year. I'm sure this will be his last year, but he'll represent Mizzou well for many years to come.
Looking forward to these Luther Burden chips, the big bag for tailgating being available at Schnucks. That'll be a great time. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Schnucks has been a great partner, and on all the chips and the products. We've got cookies in the stores. We've got ice cream. We've got frozen pizza. We've got another frozen pizza coming out in a few weeks. So Schnucks has been a great partner from the start with the chips, and again on the large bags. They've got it in all the stores, and just waiting for the tailgaters.
Looking forward to it. Ken Dubinsky, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up next year on 101 ESPN, former Ram running back Steven Jackson is headed into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame next week. We're going to talk to him next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals split their series with the Padres 2 games apiece thanks to a 4-1 victory yesterday. Sonny Gray, 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run thanks to a home run and 4 strikeouts in that game. Cardinals are back in action tonight, starting a 3-game series against the New York Yankees, 6:05 for your first pitch. Also yesterday, college football kickoff for your local squads. Tigers 51-0 over Murray State. Kansas beats up on Lindenwood 48-3, and your Fighting Illini get a 45-0 win over Eastern Illinois. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
We are efforting Steven Jackson, who's headed into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, coming up on next Thursday night. SJ39, the all-time leading rusher in St. Louis Rams history, and one of the really great supporters of our community. He's maintained a presence in St. Louis ever since he retired, and he's well deserving, Daniel, of heading into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
As are you, and I'm going to ask the text line. Okay, you ready for this?
Yes.
I get to interview you next week. I'm emceeing the event. You're going in with Ray Langford. You're going in with Kelly Chase. You're going in with some others that have big, big names here in St. Louis. What should I ask Randall? I know everything about you. What should I ask you?
You know what? Let the texters weigh in on what they would like to know from me that they don't already know. I'm kind of an open book.
I'm being dead serious. I would like to know. So 314-399-9646. 314-399.
964. Yo ho! Sorry about that. Sorry about that. You usually don't do that.
I don't, but I got to figure out what I'm going to ask you. You have been an open book. You've been doing it forever. I got to think of some things that will make it entertaining, or maybe you just tee me up on what I should ask you.
I could give you that. I'll give you some stuff.
Well, the first thing you can't do is you can't forget the family.
Right. That has been forgotten in the past.
Okay, this is a good one.
Okay, good.
314 says most embarrassing moment on the air.
Okay, we can do that.
What do you got?
I'm not going to say. If you want to ask me then, I'll ask you then.
All right, I'll ask you about your favorite color. That's from 618.
Oh, my favorite color is orange.
I won't ask you that.
Yeah.
You didn't go with like red or Rams blue or something?
My very first car was an orange 1976 Pontiac Firebird Formula. It was awesome.
You won't give me your most embarrassing...
Not here. No,
Not right now. In the interview,
I'll give it to you when we're up on the
How about this? This might be a little bit of a deep cut. The moment when you knew that you could do this broadcasting thing forever.
Oh, that's a good one. Probably when I got the stamp of approval from Jack Buck when he went into Mr. Highland after one of our guys had left. Mark Boyle left to become the voice of the Indiana Pacers, and I went into Mr. Highland at 1:30 in the morning, and I said, Mr. Highland, we got a news guy doing sports. I would like to do sports overnight. And he said, give me a tape. I said, okay. So I go in the next day, and I'm putting together a tape, editing, splicing up. Jack Buck walks in. He says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I want to do the nighttime sports, and Mr. Highland wants a tape. He said, don't move. He walks in, and as it turns out, he said, let the kid do it. And then walks back into the office and says, you're doing the sports tonight. So that was great. I started it after the Cardinal game. I think I did 11 and 12, and I was holding the counter so hard that my hand turned white. So I had my script in one hand, and I'm holding the counter so hard that I couldn't even feel it at the end of the sportscast.
Now, would the big bumper put you on the spot, or was he kind of just, that was his chance to get out of there for 25 minutes and go take a break?
Oh, he loved it. And especially the first couple of times, he'd say, well, do whatever you need to do. And so I would. And then Mr. Highland would call afterwards, and he never said goodbye. Yeah. He'd call up and say, you need to be more concise, and then hung up on me.
All right, the greatest visiting player you ever covered in St. Louis.
Okay, greatest, let me give you...
This is a good one.
This is greatest visiting player of any sport. Well, it had to be Gretzky, right?
Had to be.
Yeah, he was the most dominant. But in terms of guys that were great and great people, And I don't know, did you have the opportunity to interact much with Tony Gwynn?
Oh, yeah. So interviewed him after a game. He was incredible.
And so they would come in once a year, and I would walk into their locker room, and Tony Gwynn said, "Hey, Randy, how you doing?" And so he would have like literally a 6-foot-tall stack of dozens of baseballs. I'd say, "Hey, you got a minute? I know you're busy." He'd say, "Sit down." And so he'd be signing baseballs, and you'd do a 10-minute interview with him, and he was awesome. He always gave great answers, even though he was signing at the same time. So in terms of a great player that was a great guy, I think Tony Gwynn's probably my all-time favorite.
Every time he came through town, he would have lunch with Stan the Man. Mm-hmm. Those two made sure to get together, usually be just a one-game set or a 3-game set, or he might come through a second time, but every time he come through, he would have lunch with Stan the Man. I have a story about that, too. I went in to interview him for Sports on a Sunday at KMOX, and they were looking for a generic interview of Tony Gwynn. I said, "I'll go get it." He didn't know me from Adam, and this is way back when. This is back in the early, mid-'90s, and he was really the first guy I remember, Randy, of going and using tape in baseball as much as he used tape, and that was like the first guy I remember doing it. And he's sitting there having a little post-game meal, talking with his brother. He said, "Give me about a half hour and I'll do it." And he gave me, after the half hour, he gave me almost 20, 25 minutes of just great stuff on hitting. He was such a class act.
He was fantastic.
His son sounds exactly like him.
Yeah, he does.
He's on the radio broadcast of the Padres, and I know we're still efforting to get Mr. Jackson on, aren't we?
I think we're close here.
Okay,
we're
good.
Close in. Okay, yeah, we're going to have Stephen here in just a moment. We had a typo on our. We were calling 5-Star Painting instead of Stephen.
I love that.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
He's not working at 5-Star Painting, I guarantee that.
No, not at all. Dan McLaughlin, Randy Carricker, and we head to the celebrity line now. And one of our all-time favorites in St. Louis, Stephen Jackson, headed to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame next week. SJ39, great to have you with us on 101 ESPN. It's been a while. How you doing?
It has been. It's been good. How are you guys?
Everything's fantastic. Okay, I want to know what you're up to. You always took these sensational trips while you were playing during the offseason. What are you up to these days?
Just being a parent. That's not too much. I have 4 little ones that are all active, from a senior in high school to a kindergartner. So I'm playing zone defense, my wife and I.
So is that, I mean, that's got to keep you busy. What other interests keep you going and make sure that you're staying busy?
Yeah, so Randy alluded to our travels. I'm still an avid traveler. This winter we were in South Africa. We enjoyed Johannesburg for a little while. And we have a surprise for our daughter coming up here in a week. Her birthday's on the 6th, so we'll be going to the magical land and getting her all excited there for a big birthday surprise she doesn't expect. But from there, you know, once a year, we still try to get out the country, see the world, and allow the kids to see through different lenses, kind of how I enjoyed growing up and how I enjoy just being a citizen of the world. And I think it's important for us to get a broader perspective that way.
Stephen, you literally left body parts on the field here in St. Louis, and you were really big about giving to St. Louis. So how much does it mean to you to go into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame?
Oh, it means a lot to me. To your point, you know, majority of my career was spent there. I believe, you know, it really helped frame the person I have become now. Just being a hard worker, seeing the people of St. Louis, the pride that they have for their city and the spirit that they do it with. It's something that I try to embody on the football field. And when it wasn't football season, living in the community, wanted to help give back and fight multitudes of things that we wanted to see better within the community. So I just wanted to put in not only my checkbook, but also my hands and put the sweat of my brow in there with the city.
Where does that come from? Wanting to give back, and you did so much of that here in St. Louis. Where do you think that came from?
Oh, it was instilled in me through my parents. You know, it's one of those things, give back in service as well as the weekly, you know, through spirit. And just making sure that we can always stay in tune with what's going on, not only in our lives, but with our neighbors and those around us.
Stephen, you've always treated your body like a temple. I was telling Dan earlier about the things that you would do to prepare for games. Now that you aren't playing anymore, what level of condition are you staying in? Are you still working out as much and doing those sorts of things?
You put me on the spot. I do stay active. I love to get on the bike, and I'm a cyclist now. I'm not hitting the pavement as much, but in that my weight lifting is not to the standard that I would have expected it should. It's been a while. The body still put together. I can take my shirt off when I go by the pool, but it's not something of 20, 15 years ago.
I remember we would come out and we would be doing the pregame show from down on the field, Coach Venturi and I, and there were so many weeks where you would be dealing with a quad or a hammy or something like that, and you were always kind enough. I would either go thumbs up or thumbs down, and more times than not, you gave me the thumbs up that after that pregame workout, you were going to do it. There were a lot of days like that, weren't there, that it had come down to the wire before you would play in a game.
I know. It's funny you bring that up too. Nowadays, some of the teams expect for a decision from the player a little further more advanced than we would have to go through with the thumbs up, thumbs down. But it's one of those things that I love the game so much that I will ask the coach and the training staff to give me into the day of to let them see how it feels, because I know a difference in 48 hours makes a big difference if you're going to be able to go out there and compete with your brothers on the football field. And more times than not, it killed me more standing on the sidelines trying to root them on than being a willing participant. It was something that I looked forward to every Sunday, and when those days came there and I just had to grit it out, I was more than willing.
You have Hall of Fame numbers. Do you think about the Hall of Fame? Is it something that even crosses your mind?
In an aspect, it does. I'm rooting for Torrey Holt to get in there. I believe Torrey is well deserving of that. He should have been in already. So when Hall of Fame does come up, I think about Torrey first. Secondly, my own venture and journey, what a call may happen, who knows? But I tell you what, I've been privileged enough. I've played with some Hall of Famers. They show me the work ethic that it would be needed to make that, a possibility. I instill that into my work in and out every year. Hopefully one day, I can be teammates with them again. But as of right now, it's not something that's on the top of my mind. If anything, it's being able to support Torrey once he gets the call.
Hey, Stephen, who influenced you most when you talk about those Hall of Famers that you had the good fortune to play with? Was there anybody that stood above the rest?
It's funny you asked that. I would say, Torrey and I were a little closer in age, and we played a little more seasons together than the rest of the guys. The Marshall, Isaac, Orlando, even Aeneas. I had a chance to play with those guys 1 or 2 years, but Torrey was around a little longer, so he was someone that adopted me and kind of showed me the ropes, explained a lot of things to me, how, things are being executed, especially in those earlier 2000 days before I would be a team member. But I would say, all of them left a different instinct on me, which I would adopt. Isaac Bruce, he was someone very mindful in his the way he spoke to the media and also the words he chose. He's very mindful in that. You had someone like Aeneas Williams, who was a workaholic. He worked around the clock. I adopted that because I never wanted to be tired in the fourth quarter. You had the cerebralness of a Marshall Faulk. He could study the film and he could break down the defense really easy, and I admired that about him. And then you had Torrey. He brought the childness and the exuberance of being joyful and playing the game. So all those guys I took a little bit from because, truly they all were great in their own ways, but I had the front row seat to pick and choose all those aspects for myself.
A couple of more things for new St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer Steven Jackson. Tickets available, by the way, at STLSHOF, St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and you can get those STLSHOF.com for next Thursday night. Do you have a moment from your career that stands out for you, from your Rams career, that is kind of there in your mind's eye?
I believe, there's a lot of great moments. That first year, making a run into the playoffs, beating Seattle 3 times, that was something that stood out to me because the more you play, the more you realize that the odds of that happening is not in your favor. But then also individually, becoming the Rams' all-time leading rusher, and also seeing the 8 straight 1,000 yards rushing achievement being, put up there in Everett Jones Dome is something that burnished in my brain as well. And also just some of the fun memories over the holidays. I would have my give back and open up the Everett Jones Dome and the 39 holidays, something that we did annually there in the city. So there's a little bit of all kind of memories there. Even just making the drive downtown, getting ready for Sunday and checking into the arena, walking across the street, seeing the fans standing there waiting to get in, the anticipation of just seeing the kickoff. So all those memories stand out to me for different reasons, but it all makes me and reminds me of my career and my time there.
All right, Stephen, I've been doing radio for 41 years, covered a lot of athletes. You had the favorite hair of any athlete I ever covered. you had a long time with those dreads, and the last time I saw you, you had them cut off. Two-parter here. How long did you go between getting your hair cut, and what prompted you to get the dreads cut off?
Well, I think, that's 41 years and I stand out. That's pretty cool. But it was 15 years that I chose to wear the locks, and it was one of those things that when I took off from high school to Oregon State, I wanted to bring my family on that journey that they could no longer accompany me with, but it was one of a reminder of they were always with me to myself, and a nod to that. Love my family. I'm always going to revere and reference them because they were truly my inspiration. I decided to cut them at the end of my career because that was significant to me. It was signifying to me that part of my life and chapter was over. So I wanted to be able not only to look myself in the mirror and just redefine who I was becoming, but also know that we put that to bed. So in between that, it was definitely those things that it was rooted in strength and something that it did help me stand out, particularly in those early 2000s. There wasn't too many of us.
We went a long time with you being the shining light of our football franchise here in St. Louis, and you are a favorite for so many here in St. Louis, and I'm so happy for you that you're going into the Hall of Fame. I'm proud that you are in the same class that I'm going in as, Stephen, and I can't wait to see it on Thursday.
I was just going to say congratulations to you as well. Randy, you always, especially some of those Sundays were not, it wasn't the most welcoming times that I addressed the media, but, you always give me this look of confidence, and we would often have some sidebar conversations just talking about football in general. We both share the love for it and what all the commitment that the athletes and coaches have to go through to be prepared. So as someone that covered the sport for the city of St. Louis, I always admired the way you went about your work, and you also just helped me get through some of those tougher Sundays when some answers just wasn't, going to be able to answer all the for the fans, but we know that we were putting in 100% of commitment. So I appreciate you, and congratulations to you as well.
All right. Thank you, my man. And I'll see you Thursday. Take care.
Thank you.
See you later. That is SJ39, the great Steven Jackson here on 101 ESPN.
Nice words about you. That was great. Well deserved. 11,438 yards. He averaged over 4 yards a carry in 8 straight seasons of 1,000 or more yards. I mean, that's Hall of Fame numbers.
And he never played on a team that had a winning record in St. Louis. And there was not one single game that he played in that he was the reason that the team lost.
2004 through 12, Randy, does he get in? Because he played here in St. Louis in those years?
I think he's hurting because of that, because of the lack of playoff experience, only the one playoff year. I think the team is what brings that hurts Steven Jackson, and the fact that we just don't have a presenter anymore. It's hard for Torrey because Howard Balzer's doing everything he can, but St. Louis is kind of like we're the desert of the NFL now, and I don't think that the people that are voting for the Hall of Fame really care about St. Louis anymore.
And Steven Jackson playing on bad teams, like you said. I mean, that's going to hurt him big time. Although those are, as you well know, the numbers. Those are Hall of Fame numbers.
No doubt about it. We're going to head down the stretch with a quick rock and roll next on 101 ESPN. this year's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Make your football picks each week and see if you can defeat the Fastlane and the dudes from the Riz Show at 105.7 The Point. Fastlane and Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Get signed up to play now at 101ESPN.com. Dan, there's a lot of people that I could have picked to go into this St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame with. And my two number 39s, Kelly Chase and Steven Jackson, I couldn't have done much better than that.
Pretty good. You better bring a good speech along with my questions, because those two will knock it out of the park.
They will. We'll be brief. People are there to see Randy. They're there to hear Steven Jackson and Chaser.
We will not be brief. I can tell you that. I'm going to drag that baby out a long time.
Yeah.
You better be ready to answer some questions.
Matthew, you got any rock and roll?
Just a quick little note here. St. Louis City SC back in action on Sunday. It's an afternoon game at City Park. And I tell you what, the weather this weekend turns after a very, very hot week. I'm looking right now. I think it's going to be a high of just 85 on Sunday. And I think there actually might even be a little bit of cloud cover on Sunday. So, yeah, a high of 86, a low of 65. So it'll be right in the middle of the day. So it will be a little bit on the hotter side. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a high of 82 tomorrow in St. Louis and then a high of 86 on Sunday. By the way, next week, next week, the highs range from 79 to 83. It's about to get beautiful to start September in St. Louis, and Sunday for St. +Louis City is going to be a great game. They face off against the LA Galaxy, who are tops in the West right now. Danny Mac, I know you want to hear this. City right now plus 125 to win this game in the first 90. LA Galaxy plus 175.
Really?
So they are favored despite the large discrepancy. Not favored, but not as big going the other way, despite the large discrepancy in the standings. These teams did tie 3-3 early in the season, but they've gone very different ways.
Not to tell my friends about the betting line.
Yeah.
See, I'm interested. I'm just an innocent bystander around here.
You might want to take the away. If you saw the Portland game, the City can score.
I'm already on it, big boy.
But the defense is still problematic, and I wonder if we'll see some changes. I hope we see maybe a slightly different formation, maybe a little bit more conservative, but I don't think that's smart to hold your breath for this team to play anything conservatively.
Go City.
Go City is right.
Yeah, this is pretty much if they don't get 3 this game, I think it might be the nail.
Yeah.
In the playoff coffin?
Yeah, because Hackworth said
they have 8 left?
They have 8 left. Hackworth said they needed to win probably 7 out of 9. They already dropped 2 points by not winning against Portland, so you still have the LAFC, who's second in the West, and I actually think is a better overall roster than the Galaxy, and that's an away game, I believe. Most of your matches in these last 8 are away games, so it's just they got to pull 3 here.
All right. Great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Appreciate it, sir.
Pleasure.
Daniel, you rocked and rolled.
Oh, you rock and roll too with Matthew. And congratulations again on the Hall of Fame. I'll see you Thursday. Randy is off next week, so have a great vacation too.
I will have a good time, and you guys do great shows, and don't allow anybody to get into that Hall of Fame, please.
What do you mean?
The Fight Hall of Fame.
The Fight Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we just protect our turf.
I will. Don't worry about that. I'm going to protect our dome.
Okay, we will. Great job today. Brooke will be back on Monday, and I believe Brooke and... we are not.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. We've got Labor Day. We got a best of. How hard is that to put together?
We do a lot of great interviews, so it was actually pretty easy.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Matthew.
Hey, you guys kill it.
Best of. Have a great Labor Day, everybody.
Yep.
We thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of the show. For everybody involved with the show until Tuesday morning at 7, don't just have a great weekend. Have an American weekend.